This is Jocko Podcast number 428 with Echo Charles and me, Jocko Willink. Good evening, Echo.
Good evening.
After a lifetime of dieting, my patient Layla decided she had had enough. A 46-year-old chef who suffered from rheumatoid arthritis that left her fatigued and in pain, Layla weighed 317 pounds when she started treatment with me. The medication she needed to keep her immune system in check kept packing on pounds and draining her energy. She was close to giving up. My first goal for Layla was to help her move the needle on the scale. To give her the boost of an early win, step one was to get her moving. She began walking on her lunch break and incorporated 3 additional 10-minute walks throughout the day. Next, we got Layla started with resistance exercises to assist with quality weight loss that decreased fat tissue without sacrificing muscle. Once we got Layla moving, we focused on her nutrition. We anchored her first and last meals with protein, and she eliminated all snacking. Within 7 months, Layla had lost nearly 60 pounds. As exciting and rare as that weight loss was, it wasn't even her biggest accomplishment. She was most proud of the health benefits that flowed once her body composition shifted. Her joint pain decreased, allowing her to reduce her arthritis medication. Her blood markers, such as fasting insulin, blood glucose, triglycerides, which can gauge the risk of coronary artery disease, all improved. The most inspiring part of her story, though, was realizing that her body wanted to get stronger. Shocked by her own success, Layla grew less hungry and more encouraged. She could not believe how easy it was for her to feel so much better. And that right there is an excerpt from a book called Forever Strong, which is written by Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who studied nutrition and exercise and has helped scores of people change their health. And she recently wrote this book, which has got all kinds of information in it, much of this information is contrary to what others recommend. And she's here tonight to share some of that information with us. Gabrielle, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is when I was thinking about this, and I was talking about the fact that much of the information in this book is contrary to what others have said. That being said, there has been a groundswell over the last decade that leans certainly more in the direction of what you talk about and advise compared to what it was in the 80s and 90s. Would you agree with that?
I would. It's slow, though.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely been slow.
It's slow.
I would say that your focus being very much so, I would say leaning a little bit more into protein and muscle. Like, yes. That's kind of where I would say you're even a little bit more pro-protein and pro-muscle, which I am also pro-protein and pro. Echo Charles.
Yes, sir.
Pro-protein.
Confirm.
Pro-muscle.
Yes, sir.
100%?
100%.
So, I guess before we jump into this, or as we get into how you landed there, I kind of wanted to go to the book and just get a little bit of background on you. And you say this in the book. When I was younger, I obsessed about food and my body weight. I felt hungry all the time and couldn't seem to curb my appetite. I cycled through an array of fad diets, everything from season-determined macrobiotic to all organic, sprouted, and vegetarian. Is sprouted still a thing? Sure. Eating the sprouts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, then again, yeah.
Echo, do you eat that?
Well, no, not on a regular basis, no.
Sprouts is you're literally planting stuff in your kitchen, right? And growing them on your shelf?
Yes.
Yes,
right?
So my father-in-law is down for the sprouts.
Okay.
Very cumbersome.
100%,
I mean, again, it's growing something.
Oh, yeah, it's a little micro farm in the house cracking. Yep.
Oh, yeah. Back to the book. Back then, before I knew better, my meals were heavily skewed toward an unbalanced diet of carbs, often considered healthy, with whole grains like brown rice, barley, millet, oats, and corn. I ate locally grown vegetables, beans, and bean products like tofu, miso. Am I saying that right? Mm-hmm. And tempeh. Oh, I have heard of tempeh. And sea vegetables like seaweed, nori, and agar. Am I getting those right?
You are.
These
I'm
are
impressed.
These are things I haven't
You're secretly eating
eaten.
these things.
No. My kids used to eat seaweed.
Yeah.
The seaweed from like Trader Joe's, little plastic crunchy seaweed.
Nori.
Yeah. Is seaweed good for you?
It is.
My kids
Can
ate
be.
seaweed like crazy. I was chasing after increased energy, health, and athletic performance, but all my careful planning was rooted in misinformation. I spent hours of each day on food acquisition, obsessing over every tiny detail to get it right, in quotes. I avoided parties and brought my own snacks. I avoided parties or brought my own snacks. I exercised easily 14 hours a week. My focus on food and exercise was unhealthy, largely because I thought meeting a baseline of wellness required a diet and training program demanding that much effort. While my intentions were good, this behavior, grounded in my flawed understanding of health, devastated my body and mind. After 2 years, I found myself exhausted and malnourished. Simply put, I had been unintentionally starving myself of the nutrients I needed. Finally, my body's response to growing deficiencies was to start binge eating. Over time, I developed an incredibly disordered relationship with food that stemmed from my ability to regulate hunger. All right. How old were you when all this was going down?
18.
Like, so 16 to 18, was this teenage years?
First 2 years of college.
First 2 years of college. So when you were in high school, were you sort of into the food thing as
Not
hardcore?
at all.
When you were in high school, what were you doing? Were you playing sports? What was going on?
Dance. Remember the
Ballet?
dance team? No. So the drill team. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah. One of my daughters was a ballerina. And so that's a different level of dance. And if you told me that you were very focused on food because of ballet, I'd be like, oh, yes, you were. Because that is a highly, highly disciplined activity. And it's a little bit, in my opinion, psychotic. Right? Were you ever around ballerinas?
I was not. I mean, yes, I have been around ballerinas. We've had a handful of ballerinas.
Very, very
practice.
disciplined, very hard. And they're also very concerned about weight. So they're very concerned about weight. So that's a little bit crazy. My daughter that did ballet had more injuries than my other daughter that did gymnastics and wrestling. So that kind of tells you something. So you were doing the dance, the coordinated dance thing? Is that what it was?
Halftime events in football, the pretty athletic dances, those, not cheerleading, but what we would call drill team.
Are you flipping?
Yeah. They
Are
did
you
all
getting
kinds
thrown
of things.
around?
No. I mean, yes, you could be, but.
And was that your main athletic pursuit?
Actually, prior to that, I did track and also gymnastics.
Okay. How long did you do gymnastics for?
A couple years.
Okay. Did you train more than 2 hours a day of gymnastics?
Mm-mm.
There's a certain point with gymnastics where the kids go from training like 1 hour a day to like 5 hours a day.
Right.
And I'm talking 10 or 11-year-old kids. Like it gets crazy pretty quick. So that can happen with anything. But you got out of it before that went that crazy.
I got out of that. I was interested in soccer too. I tried all these different things, and ultimately I landed on dance.
And when you were doing dancing, was that when you started like looking at yourself in the mirror and thinking about how you looked?
No. In fact, I didn't even think about it. And the food, relationship to food had nothing to do with how I looked.
You mean in your mind you didn't make that connection?
No.
What were you eating? Were you lean? Were you just lean because you were young and you were
just naturally
dancing all the time?
Yes, naturally athletic. Never thought about body weight. And I graduated high school early, and I moved to Hawaii. I moved in with my godmother, it was a PhD in nutritional sciences, and I became very fascinated with nutrition.
Wait, what? So what age was this?
I graduated high school. I think I had graduated in 3.5 years, so I just turned 17 maybe.
Okay. So you turned 17,
Yeah.
you moved to Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing for activities now? Like for active lifestyle? Anything?
Yes, I was lifting. I was training. I was probably training about 2 hours a day.
What were you training for?
Nothing. I just loved it.
You were lifting weights?
Yeah.
You were doing squats?
I was.
You were doing deadlifts?
I don't know if I was doing deadlifts, but I was doing squats and machines at that time. That was
and the goal for you doing this was what in your mind?
It was fun.
You just liked working out.
Yeah.
But were you trying to like add more to your squat?
No.
You see what I'm saying? I'm trying to figure out.
I wasn't. I was just I had no set goal. I wasn't thinking, I'm squatting 200 pounds. I need to squat 210. I wasn't thinking about any of that.
Were you looking at the mirror thinking, oh, my arms look stronger right now? That looks cool.
No, I don't. We don't really think like that. No.
Were you looking at your abs then, or were you looking at some part of your body?
I was naturally athletically pretty fit. And to this day, it's just, there's a component to genetics where if you have started training early, you maintain the way that your body looks. And for me, I just loved being outside. I loved exercising. I thought it was amazing. And I started to then get into health and wellness and thinking, wow, well, this is this path forward. And I didn't necessarily do it right. And I was so interested in more of the natural alternative treatments and the natural eating, but there wasn't a lot of guidance at that time. And there wasn't a lot of information in terms of dietary protein. This is way before protein. This was really, if you wanted to go somewhere healthy, then you were going to go to the health food store. And that's where you were going to get your information. Maybe there's going to be some flyers on the wall, or you'll pick up a book that was written, I don't know, in the 70s. There was a Diet for a New Planet. I don't know exactly when that came out. But, you kind of turned backwards to look for current and future information, which is unusual. But no, I really was interested in the health and wellness and what that could do. My godmother at the time, who's a PhD in nutrition, was seeing patients who had cancer, was seeing all kinds of health and wellness challenges. And that's where it kind of clicked for me that this was amazing. I was going to do this.
This being nutrition.
Yeah.
You said you had, in the book there that I just read, you said you had an unhealthy relationship with food. What does that mean? Expand on that.
So then I got to college. I decided I was going to study nutritional sciences.
Oh, so this is when you got to college.
Yeah.
So how long were you living in Hawaii for?
About a year.
And what were you doing at the time for work?
I was working for room and board.
Room and board. What's that? Oh, you were just...
I was living with my godmother, this PhD in nutritional sciences. I was driving her kids around.
Okay. You were like a nanny, grocery shopper, mowing the lawn, whatever needs to happen.
Not mowing the lawn, but yes. I was doing all the other things other than mowing the lawn and planting seeds.
Okay.
Yes.
No, not even sprouts?
No sprouts or whatever else you wanted to include on that list. And the unhealthy relationship with food really happened in college.
Okay.
Because I started studying nutritional sciences.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but I am the kind of person that when I want to know something, I'm just all in and obsessive.
What year is it when you start college?
Oh God, that's a long time. I graduated medical school in 2006. So I started, college might have been 1999. Does that sound right?
1999. Okay. So that makes sense. So at that time, I'm thinking about, what I knew in 1999, 1997, 1998, 1999. I remember this is in 1998 is when I first realized, this is when I started understanding what carbohydrates did and that they might not be the best thing, because in the 90s, it was like, I remember talking to guys that were like, oh, we're cutting all fat out of our diet.
Yes.
And they were doing that, and they would replace those with carbohydrates. And I remember team guys that we'd be talking about nutrition because we want to be strong, we want to be healthy. And then eventually I got a copy of the Atkins book. Which, have you ever, I'm sure you've read them.
Of course.
Yeah. So the Atkins book, which was written in the 70s. Yeah. And that was the first book and I got that in 1998. And so that's when I was like, oh, wait a second. All these carbohydrates that we're eating are not going to be that good for you. And the fat that we're eating isn't this thing to be totally scared of, which is absolutely what was being said in the 90s. So yeah, it makes sense as you're getting to college in 1999, you're going to study nutrition. And what are you starting to learn? And you're talking about being obsessed with it.
Yeah. So I get to college and I happen to, I don't know if you believe in synchronicities, but I happen to get into the class of excuse me, a guy named Dr. Donald Layman. And I think probably just as you experience in leadership, when you are in front of someone who is truly an expert and truly legendary, you know. And when I went to the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, when I got into his class, it was like nothing that I had learned before. This is a world-leading expert in protein metabolism. And it changed the way that he thought about things, and the way that he was able to put things together changed my perspective on nutrition. At the time, I was thinking about, what is the food guide pyramid? And it's a high carbohydrate. It was very low fat diet. I was starving. I was training. I was hungry. I couldn't keep it together. And then I got into his class, and he really started to show and prioritize this idea of dietary protein and skeletal muscle. And he did some of the earlier studies. The way in which we think about protein now came out of some discoveries from him. He was the guy. He's one of the guys that created this idea and discovered how we dose protein. I mean, I know it sounds as if it's something that we all take for granted. Like, obviously we know protein makes stronger muscles, but we didn't know that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like I said, I remember in the 90s having these conversations. The conversations were about fat. The conversations were about carbs. The conversations really weren't that much about protein. Not that they were gone from the conversation, because we did take protein shakes. I mean, I had my first freaking Joe Weider super weight gain 2000 in the 80s. You know what I'm saying, Echo Charles?
Yes, I do, sir.
So we were trying to get protein to build muscles, but it definitely was the kind of the background noise over fats, which were bad, and carbs, which were good, was kind of the thing. Protein was sort of this other thing that was the third part of the conversation, the subdued part of the conversation.
And it still is. We haven't even changed the guidelines since like the 80s.
Yes.
The recommendations haven't changed. We've been hyper-focused on carbohydrates and then fats, and they change back and forth, which one is worse. And then there's the black sheep of the macronutrient family that is now dietary protein. And what's so fascinating is the way in which the recommendations are set, which haven't changed since you guys were drinking protein shakes, are based on a minimum amount to prevent deficiencies. And that is still how individuals are thinking about it. And now we have this somewhat of a political influence or an agenda influence about how cows and animal products are killing the planet, et cetera, et cetera. Red meat consumption, by the way, and it doesn't have to be a red meat conversation, but the consumption of red meat since 1975 is down 40%. And I only mention that because we hear a kind of narrative that further delineates us from being able to take actionable steps to achieve good health. 70% of Americans are either overweight or obese. 70%? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, you see those pictures now? They're circulating. You can go check them on the interwebs, but it'll be a picture of California Beach, 1956, and everyone looks good. Yeah. And then they'll put next to it California Beach, 2016, and everybody looks like junk. And these people didn't know about working out. They didn't know like what we know about working out. We've learned so much about lifting in the past 10 years. It's incredible. So these people in 1956, they didn't know anything about that. They were just doing whatever they were doing, and yet they were in pretty good shape when you looked at them on the beach in California. And so what was the big change? Well, if red meat's gone down 40%, that's definitely an indicator, isn't it?
But again, it's a correlation, but I think that we've had a rise of these processed foods, and it doesn't help. And here's why it matters to us, is that when we have these dietary guidelines influence anyone that gets federal funding. They influence the military. They influence nursing homes. They influence schools. So if we have a certain guideline that is set in place, it affects people to a degree that it's almost like, I don't want to say it's unfair, but the effect that it will have on children, military, and aging individuals is it's tremendous. And so we really should get that right.
I guess you could boil that down to just looking at school lunches, right? If the recommended guidelines are wrong and they're building the school lunch based on the recommended guidelines, which are wrong. The school lunches I had growing up were trash. I guess that's a general thing with school lunches. But at least if they said, oh, you have to have more protein in there, because I don't remember, the protein would be a slice of ham stacked between two big pieces of bread with a piece of cake and some potato chips and a carrot, right? That would be your 4 food groups. Yeah. I'm going to go back to the book real quick because it kind of talks through this transition for you. You say, although I prioritized whole foods, I'd completely missed the mark on protein. Just like so many other people I've encountered over the years, I was keeping an intense exercise regimen of 1 hour cardio plus 1 hour of weight training daily. Under eating protein left my body starved for extra fuel. All the carbs I ate kept me hungry and at the mercy of constant blood sugar peaks and crashes. Once I added high quality, strategically consumed protein to my diet, my suffering began to ease. Finally, I had regained control of my hunger. Proper nutrition helped my body recover from my workouts and supported new growth so I could finally see the results of the effort I've been putting in. Muscle started forming and my whole body changed. So did my outlook and eventually my life. Instead of subtracting foods and activity from my life, I started adding. My struggles with regulating my physiology had left me hungry, not just for food, but for understanding too. As I began following discussions about carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, I quickly learned how charged and layered with confusion nutrition can be. Nearly every person I met seemed to have their own beliefs about food science, some personal struggle with nutrition, and overall fraught long-term relationship with eating that had outlasted any romantic relationship they'd ever been in. Seeking answers in academia, I noticed that many of my classmates had come to study nutrition out of their own frustrations with food and diet. How had nutrition become such a touchy subject? Why did people eat the foods they ate? Why did some struggle with weight and food obsession for a lifetime with so little progress? These initial questions led me to a life spent treating people. I'm here to share the lessons I've learned. So, do you remember the transition when you started adding protein into your diet? Like, how did you go about it?
This is going to be ridiculous to hear. And also, as I'm listening to you read this, you're probably thinking, gosh, 2 hours a day, that's a day off for me, for you guys. So I have to acknowledge that.
No, 2 hours a day. If you're doing 2 hours of hard cardio and 2 hours of hard lifting, that's a lot. That's a lot of workout. I always tell people, if you do something really hard for 10 minutes, I mean, I've got workouts 10 minutes long that'll make me need a day and a half to recover. So yeah, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work for a human being. And especially people that are listening to this, that normal people with 9-to-5 jobs and kids and families.
That's a lot of volume.
That's a lot of volume. So
I do remember when I started adding protein back in. First of all, I was largely vegetarian. I was almost vegan. I ate very little protein. And the first thing that I started to add in was chicken. And I actually felt really guilty. And think about it. I think that there's also a lot of young women to this day.
About, like, I'm putting bad food in my body, guilting about killing a chicken.
Okay. And it's interesting because back then, I still think that there are these processes. How many girls do you have?
3 girls, 1 boy.
3 girls. I think that again, I can just speak to my experience and my friends' experiences and seeing a lot of younger girls in my clinic, is that they all seem to go through this dietary transition, and they, at some point potentially feel very bad about eating animals. And I don't know if your girls experienced that, but I definitely remember when I was making the decision, my teeth felt loose.
How long did you keep up with it for?
At least 2 years. At least 2 years. Yeah. I was largely vegetarian, if very close to vegan, for 2 years. My hair started falling out.
Milk?
No.
Eggs?
No. I maybe had a little bit of fish. And I was training. I felt like my teeth were loose. I felt my hair was falling out. I just felt terrible.
Yeah.
And I felt very guilty when I added in that chicken, but I couldn't believe how much better I felt.
I read a book one time. It's called The Vegetarian Myth. It's by a woman named Lear Keith. And I don't know how, I remember. I always get books. This was a long time ago too. But she was in terrible health. She was a vegan and she was just falling apart. Kind of like what you're saying, hair falling out, depressed, sad, just her body composition was terrible. And she went to a bunch of doctors and they'd say, well, what are you eating? And she's like, it can't be my diet. I'm a vegan. Like I eat perfectly clean. And finally one doctor said, that's your problem. And she was in a state of disbelief, but then she got to a point where she didn't have any choice because she was going to die. And I forget I think the first thing that she ate was like a tuna or fish or something. And she described it as she like put it to her mouth. She felt like this gratification and like her soul was being replenished. And it was kind of like what you're saying, similar thing where she's falling apart, hair falling out, like just feels terrible. And then turn around, she knew, she writes that when she ate that, she knew that that's what she'd been missing.
You know, it's so fascinating. I've studied nutrition now for 20 years, and it's the one thing that we all do. We all have to eat. Yet the variations that we have, it's one of the only things that I can think of that we have an incredibly varied approach to. Mm-hmm. There's no way that you eat the same as Echo, and myself. You take every single person in your gym, I guarantee you there's not one person throughout the day that is eating the exact same amount of iron or zinc, etc. Yet it's the most important thing that we do, and we have no standard way of doing it. And
everybody's a little bit different, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
You might need more protein. I might need less protein. You might need more fat. And depending on what I'm doing, there might be if I'm going hunting in the mountains, I might need more fat. If I'm going to compete in jiu-jitsu, I might need less fat. So there's all these other elements that come into play as a human.
Correct.
That you got to kind of know to read your own gauges a little bit.
Yes, and what's so and there's ways to test for it now. It's not solely about body composition. We've certainly gotten more advanced in where we can test for vitamins and mineral deficiencies, etc. But it is fascinating that the nutrition space is so confusing. It seems as if nobody agrees on any kind of foundational principles. And if the ultimate outcome is being able to get after it your entire life, we have to put things in place so that people at least have a chance. I was trying to do everything right. I was literally studying nutritional sciences. Mm-hmm. And even at the academic level, which I continued on, ended up doing a fellowship in this, people still were disagreeing on the one thing that we all do aside from breathe.
And people will continue to disagree. Well, there was a while, and look, my wife and I we get along great. And there was a little while where she told me, she never says stuff like this to me. She told me, hey, you're not allowed to talk about nutrition with my friends. And a couple of her friends were nutrition science. They had gone to school for nutrition science. And so they had probably gone in the 80s, right? This is my age group. They'd probably gone in the 80s, early 90s. That's when they graduated. So when I'm in there telling them, you don't need any carbohydrates at all, and they're like, are you kidding me? And my wife finally just said, hey, don't talk about nutrition with my friends anymore. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever. But the interesting thing is they all kind of came around. They all eventually, as science caught up to the world, and especially as it caught up to academia, it seems like they made progress.
It's very slow.
How long was it when you got in this class with Dr. Lehman? Is that his name? You get in this class with Dr. Lehman, he starts talking about protein. How long did it take for you to go, I need to up my protein, I need to start eating meat? How long did that take?
Pretty quickly. I can, he's still my mentor today. That book is dedicated to him. It's pretty unusual to have a mentor relationship 20 years of 20 some years. Mm-hmm. Pretty quickly.
So you go through that and now you're starting to feel good. Then you decide, hey, I'm just going to go all the way. I'm good with nutrition. Now I'm going to continue on this path.
No, there was a I was sitting in a class of a nutritional science class with, there's 2 tracks. It was dietetics and medicine. That's pretty much how you do it. And there was a tornado warning, and we all had to go to this tornado. You know, the cornfields of Illinois lend itself to tornadoes. And I was sitting in the fallout shelter. I swear it felt like for hours. And I was sitting there with a bunch of people from the nutrition class, and I just felt useless. I felt like a useless piece of shit.
Why?
Because in a moment of emergency, I had no skill set to do anything valuable.
Got it.
And to be of use is a value of mine, and has been just a driving force to actually really be of service to people. And I couldn't do anything. And it was at that moment I decided to go to medical school.
Okay. So you apply to medical schools and you end up going to Arizona College of Osteopathic Medicine. That's where you end up going to. And how's this? How is that school? What do you learn? Are you focused on nutrition? Like, what do you focus on there?
So I get to medical school. I thought that, and I chose osteopathic school. So there's 2 types of physicians that carry the same license. I'm not sure if you guys are aware. I
had to study it yesterday. I had to figure it out, or 2 days ago when I was prepping for this podcast. I had to figure out the difference between osteopathic medicine and what is it?
Medical
doctor. And it's also important for people that are overseas that are listening. Osteopathic medicine in America is a lot different than osteopathic medicine in every other country, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
So in America, if you're an MD medical doctor or an osteopathic doctor, either one of those, you can prescribe medicine, you can do surgery. It's just that you have this additional sort of coverage, which is on sort of the whole body functioning together as a big unit. That's what it is. Now, overseas, an osteo, I don't know if they call it osteopathic doctor, but an osteopathic medicine practitioner in most countries overseas can't do surgery, from what I understand. They can't prescribe medicine. They're like an advisor. They can definitely help you with nutrition. They might even, correct me if I'm wrong, they do like massage and things like that.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Not sure.
But you chose this path because you wanted this sort of holistic view of medicine?
Yes. And I was very interested in skeletal muscle. You're absolutely correct. In the US and MD DO, they're the same. The training is the same. In fact, I did an MD fellowship. There's no restrictions on licensing. The opportunity that a DO has is we get additional training for musculoskeletal manual therapy if in fact we want to use it. And we also...
In manual therapy, that means massage?
No.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's not massage. It's actually... For example, if your shoulder hurt, I would look to see, is it coming from your neck? Is it coming from somewhere else? It's training in the way that the body functions as a unit.
Got it.
So that's kind of and many osteopathic physicians don't practice that. It's just additional learning that they don't practice.
Which is weird because doctors also, if you have a problem with your shoulder, they look at your neck, right? I mean, normal doctors do that too.
Yeah. So basically it is additional training. And I would say there's some philosophical view that the body is an entire unit and that it functions as more of a holistic perspective, at least when I was training. I think that there's less delineation now. It seems like there's much less delineation now.
That's the articles that I read about it says that this has become closer and closer together, less and less differences between the two in the past decade or so.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So you're going to school, you're going to college.
It, man.
You didn't like it.
I was like, should I quit this? This is terrible.
How long is it? Is it 4 years?
Yeah.
You didn't like it?
No.
Because you don't like studying? What?
I love studying. It was all pathology. It was all what is wrong with the body, what goes wrong. You know, and we spend all of this time looking outward, trying to fix these problems, as opposed to what is the foundational perspective that we have. You know, we are more overweight, we're sicker, we have all these problems, and we're looking for, quote, solutions. But from my perspective, what if the solution is getting your lifestyle right? Instead of continuing to spend $4 trillion a year on X, Y, and Z to further the health of Americans, I think that we have a lot of the answers. So I hated medical school. I thought that it was just, I don't know anyone who really likes it. But my husband, he kind of liked it. It was cool for him. But I thought many times I was going to quit. And by the time I finished medical school, I had thought to myself, maybe I won't even go to residency. Mm-hmm. Maybe I won't even go to additional training. So at the last minute, I applied to 3 places, which is unheard of. Mm-hmm. So my husband, who was a SEAL, was a medic in the teams, he applied. I think he might have applied to 30 programs or something like that. Check. 30 programs.
And where do you go to Rutgers?
So he went to medical school at Rutgers, and then he graduated top of his class, actually.
Oh, of course.
Not bad for
He's a team guy. He's getting after it. He's not going to let anybody beat him in anything.
No, it was, it's so funny because we're all like, I don't know if this medical school is going to just crush it. Yeah. Published like 12 papers, graduated with honors, the whole thing. So when he finished, he applied to 30 programs. When I finished, I applied, I think, to 3 places. I'm like, I'm not doing this. And I don't care if anyone accepts me because this was a terrible choice. I applied to Mayo Clinic, which I actually got accepted. And that was for family medicine. And then I applied to University of Louisville for psychiatry. And I think I applied one more place. I did the interviews and I actually got accepted to all of them. Okay, fine. And then decided to do psychiatry for 2 years. And I thought that if I had to do something, I'm going to learn what it takes to function and be mentally tough. I really thought that psychiatry was all about how do we progress the way that we think.
So what are you doing during your residency as a psychiatry? So psychiatry can use, again, I'm ignorant. Psychologist will talk to you. Psychiatrist will prescribe you drugs.
Yeah.
Is that right?
It's a combination of both.
Okay.
I actually found my training in psychiatry really valuable. And also very intense. It wasn't what I had anticipated nor what I had expected. At the University of Louisville, they have an emergency psychiatric unit, and it has armed guards. It is a small box. They put everybody together, whether you have schizophrenia, bipolar, you name it, but they have all of these people in the same room. I can't say that it's very safe, right? They have bulletproof glass behind the intake area. And it became so clear to me that the brain is an organ system, that it is fully its own organ system. Just like the lungs can get pneumonia, the brain can get sick. It was very fascinating. But there was a moment in time where I felt like, this really isn't for me. And I was working in the psychiatric ER, because you have to do that as part of your rotation. And they brought a body in. And it was of a 21-year-old kid who had jumped off of the 6-story parking garage. He broke every bone and, he died. And his dad was an orthopedic surgeon at the hospital. And I had to tell him. And it was at that moment that I just thought, this is not what I had thought it was, and this isn't where I was really going with this nutrition and et cetera and all the things. And so that really struck me.
How long? So this is a 2-year residency,
No, it was
right?
4. So I left after 2 years.
Oh, okay. So your 2 years of you're dealing with people that have psychiatric outbursts. They're suicidal. They're violent.
Yeah.
What's your day-to-day? Talk me through like an average day.
Yeah. Well, it varies depending on what rotation you were on, but a typical rotation would be you would check in, you would go into the lockdown unit. So they have a lockdown unit at the hospital, and you obviously have your patients. There's a code to get in. It is a very sterile environment, and people are typically highly medicated, and it's not necessarily, and I'm not trying to paint a picture of mental illness for the world. This was just my experience, and this was what the rotation and what my day-to-day was like. It wasn't always safe. There were multiple times in this tight lockdown unit where the physicians were attacked, where it wasn't it wasn't abnormal for a person to require restraints. I mean, this was real mental illness. And you round on these patients, you have care teams. There was no nutritional intervention. They were eating the same crap that, it comes from Pop-Tarts, et cetera, and nothing was done. These guys weren't exercising. It felt almost, and I haven't been to prison, but it felt almost as if these guys were imprisoned for their own safety. And so that's what a day-to-day would be. And then if you were on call.
So you go in to see a patient. Tell me about a patient. Like, what's going on with a patient?
I had one patient that, I'll tell you a story, another one that really struck me. I had one patient who had schizophrenia, and he had been actually in prison because he had burned his house down with his family in it.
And so when you go to interact with him,
yes,
what is your goal in interacting with him? It
is, to get a sense of how stable he was on his medications.
Because it's not like they're going to release him to the world.
No. He had been in, I don't know if it was prison, but he had been in, a different type of lockdown unit. Again, there's flux, whether they have to come to the hospital for whatever their challenges are, because people also get sick, whether they have an infection, et cetera. So the typical, that was an example of a patient, when you're reading the history and you have to determine what their blood levels are they stable on a certain medication? And what does it what do I mean by stable? Are they hearing voices? Are they taking their medications? Are they cheeking their medications? What is the sense of, are they alert and oriented to
Were you in a position with these people? Was there anybody that you could help? Meaning, was there people that you could progress over? You were there for 2 years. Did you see anyone progress to the point where you're like, okay, this person can go back out into the world? And
yeah.
Or were you in such a severe ward that these people aren't ever going to get anywhere?
Well, again, we go through rotations, and part of it is a handful of months on this lockdown unit, and then it's in the emergency psychiatric ward. So the only continuity of care you have is in your own clinic. So you are required also to see patients on a one-on-one basis. And those individuals typically are much more stable. And in terms of progression, yes, I had one woman who, she was already living in, the regular world, I don't know if there's a better way, a non-lockdown unit. But that, yes, so there was some progression. But, at the same point, I would see frequent flyers. And at one point, I had gotten followed. And again, the brain has its own illnesses where this person had created delusions about me. And I had been followed and all of these things. So I had to have security escort me every time I would go to the hospital and escort me back out of the hospital for a period of time.
Who comes into an emergency psychiatric ward on a Friday night, on a Saturday night? Like, what are you dealing with in those scenarios?
I can share with you how I dealt with it, which was different than the way that the other residents dealt with it. The individuals that will come in, the typical was if someone had a bipolar episode, maybe they were manic, maybe they were depressive, maybe they were a danger to themselves. Those individuals were brought in on a mental inquest warrant. So they were brought in by the police or someone like that and dropped off in this lockdown unit, processed through in this lockdown unit. Maybe there's 15 to 20 spots. So that would be an individual that was going through.
And they were out in the city and they were threatening someone or having a standoff with the police and I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill myself.
Yes.
And they're showing up at your ward.
Yes.
Okay. And that's what you're seeing Friday night, Saturday night.
But
whatever.
that's not all. And then we had individuals that were schizophrenic, that were hallucinating, that, were seeing angels or seeing the devil and potentially very aggressive, and some that weren't. You also had individuals that were hungry, that were homeless and hungry, or individuals that were going through withdrawals, whether it was alcohol or drug withdrawal. So what I would do is I would go through the glass, the bulletproof glass, and I would take my clipboard and I would go to everyone and say, why are you here? Are you hungry? Do you need medication? Or, are you here hearing voices? And maybe I didn't say that, but something like that. And it was highly effective because there wasn't a judgment towards them. It was, why are they here and what is the real issue that needs to be addressed? And maybe they were just hungry. Maybe they didn't have the resources that they needed. And by doing that, I was able to process them through quickly, as opposed to the standard way of doing things would be take one person at a time. And
so you'd kind of triage them?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
This is interesting to me because I didn't understand too much about this for my life, and I started to realize that, well, it's what you said. Like, the brain is an organ, and you can have problems with it, just like you have problems. The way I always describe it is you can have problems with the car. Like, when I'm talking to someone and they're going through some kind of like psychological issue and they're having a hard time with it, I explain to them, because a lot of them are military guys and they don't want to hear like, well, you need help. They want to hear. So the way I break it down to them is, look, man, this is like you have a problem with your car. You don't just if you keep driving it, it's going to break. It's going to blow up. You need to get it fixed. You need to take it to a mechanic. Take it to a brain mechanic. That's what a psychologist, that's what a psychiatrist is. And what I'm kind of putting together now is like, you're dealing with the people that were on the extreme end of this, but there's so many, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but what it seems like to me is there's a whole bunch of degrees of mental illness, right? You can
Absolutely.
be bipolar, schizophrenic, like I'm hearing voices, but there's also just like a normal person that's
yes.
like going through issues that they can get help too. They need to, they might not be so obvious, but they might feel depressed, they might feel anxious or whatever these things are, and they can still get help. It's actually easier to help that person because it's not as severe of a problem. Is that a good assessment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I at some point pretty quickly realized this wasn't the training. It was so valuable because ultimately I interface with people. Mm-hmm. I treat people. And if you cannot get their brain on track, there's nothing you can do. I could provide the most amazing program, but if they don't have discipline and worthiness and are able to understand the narratives that go on in their head, there's nothing I can do. Mm-hmm. It was incredibly valuable, but psychiatry was definitely not for me.
So for 2 years you do this.
Yes.
And then you decide, I'm out. This is not what I want to do all the time for the rest of my life.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the process what do you present? Go to the
director
of the
program? No, I'm not going. I found it very unsupportive. The place, it just, my experience was that, I just left. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, this isn't the thing for me.
We used to go to your husband might have been there too. We used to go to an old psychiatric facility to train. Did he ever tell you about that? We would do training. It's an old, in order for us to do urban combat and close quarters combat, you want to go to places where you haven't been before. And there was an old psychiatric facility, and we would go there, and there's a bunch of buildings, and it was the creepiest place to go in at night and walk around. And there was still relics of what had gone on there. And there's a whole world to explore when it comes to institutions and mental institutions. There was a ton of abuse that was going on in those things.
Yes.
And that's, if you've ever read the book One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or seen the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, fantastic. But that movie sort of was the climax of, hey, we're abusing these people and giving them lobotomies and they don't belong in there. And unfortunately, we've gone to this extreme where there's no real mental health facilities anymore. There's not enough mental health facilities. I forget the numbers. There used to be thousands of beds for every 100,000, civilians or citizens, and now it's like 100 or 82 beds or something. It's not adequate at all. That's why we have such a problem with homelessness. Yes. That's why we have such a problem with drug abuse. It's like those people used to get taken and put into a facility. Unfortunately, the facilities oftentimes were corrupt, so we threw the baby out with the bathwater. So you're doing this, and you say, you know what? I'm not doing this.
That's exactly what happened.
And then it was then it was off to Washington University. Did you go right into that next program? How'd that work?
So I took a breather, and then I went to a program in New York, which was North Shore LIJ. And I did that for...
North Shore what?
North Shore LIJ. And that was my next program, and that was family medicine. And I completed that. That was a really great experience. That took 3 years.
So that was your residency then?
That was my residency.
You get done with that residency.
And then
that was normal. You're helping people,
Yeah.
family medicine, you're seeing kids.
Yeah.
You're helping them get better. You know, that's the one thing whenever I think about doctors and what they're doing, you're seeing sick people all day. And I know you're friends with Johnny Kim. When Johnny Kim was trying to become a doctor, and I remember telling him in front of this officer board, I was like, I hate doctors, I hate nurses, I hate hospitals, I don't like to go there, I don't like medicine, I don't like any of it. If I ever have to go, I would love for you to be taking care of me. That's what I said to Johnny Kim. So one of the cool things, or one of the negative things, I always think of, like, you're seeing sick people all the time.
Oh, it's terrible.
And seeing sick kids.
Yeah.
But I guess in family medicine, you start to get kids that you can help, and you can move them forward, and you can help them get better. So that's awesome.
So this,
and when I said I hate
yeah.
doctors and nurses, for you doctors and nurses, it's a
hates
matter of
you.
speaking, right? I really appreciate what you do every day. I wouldn't want to do it, and I don't like when I have to. Whenever I go to a doctor, which is seldom, I always tell them I hope I never have to see you again. And they say, well, I hope the same thing. So there you go.
That's very funny. And I would say, again, you know, you and I were talking, and Echo were talking. I take care of a lot of former team guys and their families. They feel the same way. The wives love me, but the guys are like, oh, okay, well, I got to do this. And I'm fine with it. What I loved about family medicine is that now you got to remember, I had studied nutrition, and I had studied nutritional sciences and hadn't stopped because I feel and have felt very passionate about it. And when I went to do family medicine, I saw sick people. You know, you do hospital rounds, and you do pronounce a lot of people dead. You know, you're in the trenches, but you also have clinic where you're seeing kids that you can help, and you're seeing patients that don't have things critically wrong with them for the most part. I mean, again, it just depends on which part of the rotation that you're on. But I was able to start doing nutritional sciences with them, putting them on programs as a resident, watching them get better, maybe even sneaking in a vitamin D lab. And it was amazing. And I felt useful because they were able to transform their health, and they were able to lose weight, and they were able to feel worthy and execute of the things that they needed to do. And then when I graduated, and by the way, I have to say though, there was a lot I didn't really like about the standard medical care because I saw all the flaws in it. There's a lot of medication being given out. A lot of the people that we were seeing had things that were preventable. People were going into the hospital, and the first thing that we were doing is putting them on bed rest. There's no faster way to destroy the health of skeletal muscle than to put someone on bed rest and then give them Jell-O and Cheerios. Eesh. And they didn't even have a chance. From a nutritional perspective, you're not even going to have a chance because it was so backwards. Again, the dietary guidelines affect things and places that get federal funding. I'm not saying that this hospital, I think this is a private hospital, but it's a standard of care that we're providing. And when I was graduating, I'm like, oh gosh, more school? Because now at this point, I'd already done undergraduate in nutritional sciences and vitamin mineral metabolism, and then 2 years detour in psychiatry, and then 3 years in family medicine. And I was like, gosh, you know, I have to be able to learn more. So then I did a fellowship at Washington University in geriatrics and nutritional sciences.
What made you choose geriatrics?
I did not want to do geriatrics. The deal was, in order for me to learn from the best. So are you familiar with WashU?
No.
WashU is one of the best schools in the country. Their acceptance rate is like a few percent. But in order for me to go there, I had to get funding. And the way I was going to get funding was to be a geriatrician. Mm-hmm. And for those listening, geriatrics is over the age of 65. It is typically people that if they, you know, this was dementia, this was Alzheimer's, This is people in nursing homes. It wasn't what I had envisioned for myself. But I was willing to do it because I wanted to study with the best. And I did a 2-year fellowship in geriatrics and nutritional sciences. And they seem as if it's so different, like this geriatrics and actually obesity medicine was some of the research that I did. And it seems as if they are on two various ends of the spectrum, but they're not. And by the way, there's so many knives on the table, I'm afraid I'm going to like knock one off. And then we're going to have to really call a doctor.
Just don't cut yourself. That would suck.
And I was working on this study, and I was looking at body composition and brain function. And we all have that one person that affects us, the one person that changes the trajectory of everything that we thought. And I was looking at body composition, body fat, and brain function. And I imaged the brain of this woman. She was a mom of 3 kids, in her mid-50s, always struggled with the same 20 or 30 pounds, everything that the food guide pyramid had told her, the blah, 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 Weight Watchers. And I imaged her brain, and her brain looked like the beginning of an Alzheimer's brain. And I was like, what are we doing? We're hyper-focused on obesity. We don't have an obesity epidemic. The one thing that all my patients had in common, my sickest patients, was they didn't have any muscle, and they didn't have any healthy muscle. And I was like, God, we've been chasing this obesity epidemic for the last 50 years, and we're fatter than ever. And are we asking the wrong question? And in fact, I believe that we are. And that's where the book premise of this idea of muscle-centric medicine came from.
Yeah, I got the in the book, just like to just give that section of the book, because it's pretty interesting how it all ends up. You say, one study I worked on examined the connections between body weight and brain function and found a correlation between a wider waistline and lower brain volume. The working premise was that obesity causes insulin resistance in the brain, a sort of type 3 diabetes of cerebral matter. That's a really interesting thing that I hadn't heard of before. Calling Alzheimer's and brain function type 3 diabetes. I see Echo's nodding his head because he's making that connection over there. That could lead to dementia. Our research showed that people with obesity often had impaired overall cognitive responses such as impulse control, task switching, and other mental challenges. Again, you're saying obesity. People with obesity had these problems: impulse control, task switching, other mental challenges. I became very invested in the study's participants, especially Betsy. That's what you were just talking about. A mother of 3 in her early 50s who had always put her family and others first. Betsy had spent decades struggling to lose the same 15 or 20 pounds she'd been carrying since her first pregnancy, but she shouldn't have been advised to focus on the weight she had to lose. The real threat lay with what she had failed to build. Imaging her brain revealed her future. The pictures I saw looked like those of someone with Alzheimer's. I knew what was in store for her within the next few decades, and it crushed me. I felt that I, along with the mainstream medical community and society, had failed her. To me, she represented dozens of patients I had seen in the same position. Then it hit me. These people had one thing in common: low muscle mass or some impairment to their muscle. They all lacked the strength to perform certain basic movements, and they had low physical tone along with blood markers that indicated unhealthy muscle. Their issue wasn't body fat, I realized. It was lack of sufficient healthy muscle tissue. We in medicine and society have long been telling people to lose weight. But by focusing on fat, Betsy, like so many, had failed to get healthy no matter how hard she tried. I realized that we had gotten the narrative all wrong, and the consequences for countless individual lives would be devastating. Desperate to repair what I felt was the medical community's biggest failure, muscle-centric medicine became my mission. Is there something that led you to see that thread that other people hadn't seen?
Well, I had always been really interested in my own training. And I just, when you start seeing death everywhere, which again, as a geriatrician, it's a component of that is end of life. And you're watching who are the people that get admitted to the hospital, who are the people that are breaking a hip, who are the people that are never walking again? And then who are the people that are thriving? And yes, it was that muscle was this key organ system that everybody had brushed over at the time, and still to this day. When we think about muscle, we think about, like, what does a team guy care about? Good hair and a lot of tea and big muscles. And I think a lot of individuals are really believe that skeletal muscle is all about being jacked or being a good athlete. Yes, and that hard physical training does something even more tremendous. The more muscle mass you have, the greater your survivability. The more muscle mass you have, the more healthy muscle mass you have, the greater your metabolic profile, the better your metabolic profile, better potentially your brain function is, the better your survivability against anything. Yes, strength, mobility, the better your immune system. Skeletal muscle, when you contract it, is this endocrine organ that secretes these myokines, which are just big fancy words for molecules that travel throughout the body that interface. Again, back to this idea of an osteopathic physician, the body is this holistic unit. And this holistic unit was designed for hard physical labor. And so what happened was, the way that I saw it is we had taken out this piece of hard physical labor. And even the, quote, exercisers, they weren't doing enough. It just, the way in which we have become domesticated has really destroyed us. And that is what I just became obsessively thinking about. And that how do we maintain the health of skeletal muscle as we age, and how can we change the trajectory of what we believe as health and wellness? So in our minds, and humans are interesting, when they see something like a pattern repeated, whether they hear it or they see it, they believe that to be the appropriate outcome. For example, if you hear enough times that red meat is killing the planet, whether it's true or not, you'll believe it. If you believe that as we age, that there will be a sharp decline in your functioning, and that this is the way in which you have to age, you believe it, and perhaps you stop training as hard and you say, oh, well, this is just because I'm getting older, et cetera, et cetera. Just because it's been in repetition and no one in the mainstream has really lived in a certain way that has exemplified what it means to age in a way of strength. We don't have, the people kind of in the public eye, I wouldn't say that they are clearly defined as ways in which we would want to age. And once we get clarity about how we are planning on aging and what the requirements are and what it's going to take, we can simplify everything and protect ourselves and protect our loved ones. And so those were some of the things that I had begun to think about. And then I started to think about, when you go to the doctor, I know you don't go, maybe Echo goes, but when no team guy goes to the doctor ever, but when someone goes to the doctor, they'll say, what's your blood pressure? Let me listen to your heart, let me listen to your lungs. No one says, okay, how strong are you? Really, truly, how strong are you? And how much muscle mass do you actually have? That's not even a vital sign, but it should be.
What's interesting about this, if you're listening to this right now, is a very similar correlation to leadership. So leadership is a skill that you can build and you can grow. Some people, they hear me talk about leadership. Well, I'm not a good leader. I won't be a good leader. No, you can actually become a better leader when you learn to be more articulate, when you understand the principles of leadership, when you interact with people, when you pay attention, when you learn to detach. There's things that you can do to make you a better leader. Now, there are people that have more natural leadership capability than other people. Those people are out there. They're really charismatic. They're really articulate. Those people exist. And that's great. They get to just step up and lead and they do a good job. But everybody else has to work for it. And you know what? It's the same thing with muscle. Most people, like, sure, there's some people that are just genetically gifted with a whole bunch of muscle mass. Good for them. That's awesome. Most people, you have to work. You have to do work. And if you don't do work, you won't get strong. You won't get stronger. You definitely won't maintain strength. So, I mean, I work out every day. Echo works out every day and probably takes every third day off.
Fourth day.
Fourth day. So, but this is a pattern that you've been doing for you're now 40. How old are you?
I don't know. 46.
46 years old?
Yep.
You started lifting when you were 10?
15, 16.
15, but you were doing push-ups at 10?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, push-ups just to get a little bit bigger than he's got a twin brother. And he wanted a little bit more jacked.
Yes.
But that's a long time. That's 30 years of lifting, roughly speaking.
Yeah.
Me, I'm the same way. I started working out probably when I was 15 or 16, just with the sports, but you're doing a little bit like, I think I can get biceps or whatever, because that's what you're thinking in 1983. You're like, oh, hell you see Rocky or whatever doing chin-ups, so you're going to do some of that.
Sure.
But then, spending my adult life in the teams where you're working out all the time and then not stopping working out. We were talking about this before we hit record today. Like, I train jiu-jitsu. I still train jiu-jitsu. I still get on the mat with the young beasts and train with them hard. And I believe that the reason I'm able to do that is because I never stop lifting, and I never stop lifting. I don't take a month off or 3 months off or 3 weeks off because I was busy or this or that, because I think that's a huge opportunity for you to get injured. You take 3 weeks off or a month off, and then you're like, I'm going to go back in there, and you try and lift something that you haven't lifted in a while. That's when you get hurt. And actually the figures that you put in the book, and you're going to have to remind me, or maybe you don't remember them off the top of your head, but the amount of what your percentage of muscle loss goes down when you're not lifting.
It's extraordinary, isn't it?
It's horrible.
It's horrible.
And I didn't know that. Now that I know that, I'm even going to work out even more. I'm going to go from every day, I'm going to go 9 times a day. That's what we're doing. But so people that are listening right now, and actually I forgot to tell you this before we hit record, this book of yours, my mom is 80 something, and it was part of her book club.
That's cool.
And so she read it. But for people that might be 75, 48, 52, 28, it doesn't matter where you are. You've got to put in the effort to maintain your muscle in your body. You got to do it. It's going to help you with every aspect of your life. And I've always known that. Actually, we've said that on this podcast. I put a Discipline Freedom Field Manual. I've been saying that I just didn't really explain it very well. And I certainly didn't have we had bro science to back it up.
Yes, sir.
We backed it up with bro science hard,
yes,
right?
Yes,
Living proof right here of bro science. Oh, I'm still rolling.
Yeah.
But the science that you have and the experience that you have in that area makes it very obvious that if you're out there and you're listening to this right now, you should be lifting weights and trying to be strong. That's what you should be doing. That should be a priority in your life. It might even be the number one priority in your life.
It is. It's even more impactful. I hate to say this. It is more impactful than what you eat. I mean, you obviously cannot out-train a bad diet. That's not going to happen. But, we have this era of what are the hacks? Mm-hmm. The only hack is hard work.
Yeah.
And by building and maintaining skeletal muscle, it is your body armor. That's funny talking about body armor sitting across from you, but you get what I'm saying.
Yep. And it's 100% true. I think that, look, I've gotten injured. I got injured in teams a little bit, got injured in jiu-jitsu a little bit, but from the amount of stuff that I did in the teams and on the mats, not to mention surfing, not to mention skiing, not to mention running around the mountain hunting, all those things, to not get injured very often, which again, knock on wood, I'm very lucky, but you get thrown around, torqued around, things go where they're not supposed to go, and if you lift weights, you're going to be that much better off in every aspect of your life.
Yeah, and it has to be a non-negotiable. And this book really puts the science behind it in a different aspect than training or performance, but a medical aspect. When you are out there training and you're contracting skeletal muscle, I had mentioned that it releases these myokines. These myokines interface with the immune system. So you talked about Layla, the woman in the beginning who had rheumatoid arthritis. One of the treatments was exercise, because when she was contracting her skeletal muscle, these myokines that are released counterbalance the inflammatory process that's happening. But that is not prescribed. In fact, exercise can be optional. Eating can't be, right? Everybody has to eat, unless, I don't know, you've got some new fad diet that you become an aeritarian. But everybody has to eat. But exercise and physical activity. Do you know that 50% of Americans don't exercise? 50%. And then wait, this is really bad. 70% will hit both recommendations for resistance training and 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity.
Wait, 70% do that?
Do not.
Oh, do not do that. So 50% don't work out at all.
Yeah.
And then 70% don't hit
any of the
minimum recommended.
Yes.
What are the minimum recommendations?
150 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity.
A week?
A week plus 2 days of resistance training.
Okay, yeah. We for the New Year's, we did this thing, Def Reset, where it was like, these are the things that you're going to do. And one of the things that I've talked about with basically making yourself a task list, prioritize and execute. When you read Extreme Ownership that we were talking about earlier, this one of the laws of combat, the third law of combat leadership is prioritize and execute. So when you prioritize and execute your life, one of the things I've been telling people lately to get a little bit more granular that is do the strategic things first, meaning, I've got these 4 little things that are due today and I've got to get them done, so I'm going to do those first. No, actually do those after you're trying to write a book. Do that first. You've got a long-term project. You would do that work first, and then do the stuff that's due today. It's reverse psychology. It's counterintuitive because most people think, well, I got this due today. I'll do that, and then I'll do the long-term project. No, don't do that. Do the big long-term strategic stuff first. And what is the most long-term strategic thing that you can do in your life? Take care of your health. So that's why when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is work out. Because you don't notice 1 workout. You don't notice 2 workouts. You don't notice 3 workouts. You don't notice 30 well, you probably notice 30, but you don't notice these things. And you have to put them first so that you get them done. And this is even more evidence. We're bridging bro science and real science right now. We're bridging. So we're good.
It's the health is the great equalizer. It is the great equalizer. You will never be able to outperform your level of health. And people will say, you can be mentally tough. I take care of people that change the world. That is my mission in life, is to care for people that change the world. And I believe I do that very well. The common denominator of how capable and how well they will be able to do their job is not based on how mentally tough they are. It is absolutely based on their health. And it's interesting because the hard chargers drive forward regardless, but I would say that that's a rookie move. That nothing will take you out faster than a health diagnosis. Eventually, not sleeping will catch up with you, all of these things. And yet, people really fail to recognize that that is the foundation.
Yep. All right, let's get into this muscle-centric medicine. Hey, I haven't said this yet. I usually say this pretty early on. Get the book. We're gonna skim like the very wave tops of the book, but get the book. Forever Strong. Just go get it. You can get the details, but we're gonna hit the highlights of it right now. Here's one of the fundamentals that you talk about, and we just been talking about. I'm gonna give you a little details from the book. The life-changing power of skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle, the muscle that moves bones to control our locomotion, not only constructs our physical architecture, but also impacts our physiological infrastructure. A grossly underestimated resource, muscle burns fat, drives metabolism, protects against disease, and so much more. Nearly, and here's the bullet points, nearly immediate improvements measurable within 2 weeks brought about by increasing muscle health include better blood sugar regulation, hunger control, increased mobility. Next bullet point, longer term benefits include a stronger body and stronger bones, improved blood profile, including lower triglycerides, metabolism protection, increased survivability against nearly every disease, and a better mood. Echo, can you confirm that if you're jacked, you have a better mood?
Yes, sir. I can confirm.
And muscle-centric medicine harnesses this powerful system to heal disease, build better body composition, boost energy, increase mobility, and combat the conditions associated with aging. So that's what we're doing. That's everything that we just talked about. And in the book, you've got a lot of details around more specifically what that looks like and how it works. So very important underestimated thing. Grossly underestimated.
Yes.
So I surf, and guys that surf, like, you're in good shape. If you have a remotely good lifestyle and you surf, there's guys out there that are studs. And they're 45 years old, 50 years old, 55 years old. That's a key component. If you're doing something that is active, that takes strength, you're going to be in such better shape than if you're not. If you're one of those 50% of people that don't exercise, do, like, 100% stop the podcast right now and go start working out. That's what you should do right now.
And it doesn't even have to be complicated, right? It could be, listen, you should allocate mental resources to a good training plan, but there's absolutely no excuse to not be able to do body weight exercises, whether it's squats or push-ups. And that all might sound silly, but remember, the things that we care about, what are the ultimate endpoints? We care about not getting dementia, right? We care about not getting heart disease. You care about not getting hypertension, obesity, diabetes, type 2 diabetes. You'll lose your foot, you'll lose your eyesight, destroy your kidneys. These are not diseases all about obesity. So just hear me out. Obesity is in one part a symptom of unhealthy skeletal muscle. The greatest prevention and protection against something like Alzheimer's is the health and wellness of your skeletal muscle. So there's no such thing as a healthy sedentary person. People will talk about, if you look in the literature, this healthy sedentary individual. That does not exist. Skeletal muscle was designed to move over time. If it doesn't, you've had like a fatty Wagyu steak with like marbling in it.
Yes, I certainly have.
Skeletal muscle will look like that. If you are not training and creating this flux and this movement of substrates, whether it's glycogen utilization of the fatty acids in the skeletal muscle is almost like a pond. And when that pond becomes stagnant, fat builds up and it destroys this tissue. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is it's your metabolic sink. And if you can appreciate that Alzheimer's is type 3 diabetes of the brain, again, they're genetic.
Is that from current literature right now?
Yeah.
Are people saying that?
Yeah.
That Alzheimer's is type 3
diabetes of the brain. It's in part. I graduated my fellowship in 2015. Did I graduate in 2015? Yes, I did. And at that time, there was a lot more discussion about the metabolic implications. And now it certainly has an uptick in people's understanding. These diseases of aging, people believe they just happen to us. Alzheimer's and cardiovascular disease, these challenges begin in your 30s. These are not, and even sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle mass and function, which many of us have witnessed our parents or grandparents getting skinnier and scrawnier. Mm-hmm. While there are certain changes that happen in skeletal muscle, when these changes happen, these are when we see the uptick in metabolic dysregulation. If we can maintain the health of skeletal muscle, then it allows us to maintain a healthy metabolism. What do I mean by that? Quite simply, again, you had mentioned it, blood sugar regulation, blood glucose, insulin, triglycerides. These are all dependent on the health of skeletal muscle. When that skeletal muscle declines, you will see fatty infiltration. You will also see a rise in blood glucose, potentially a rise in insulin, triglycerides, etc. This becomes very destructive to the brain, to heart health, to arterial health. And again, we're always looking outward for the quote solution. I would argue that it's about pulling back to look at the foundation, and we have to have other physicians and other individuals begin to speak about this as opposed to chasing fat and prescribing more Ozempic and Mounjaro, which are all great drugs. Mm-hmm. But there has to be some accountability.
How does Ozempic work?
It's a GLP-1 agonist. And so basically what that mean is it does a number of things, but it decreases hunger tremendously. it makes your body feel as if it's full. It changes gut motility, so food stays in your system longer. There's a potential that it browns white fat. I do think that it is a very good drug, and we use it in my practice. There's a lot of discussion about how it destroys skeletal muscle mass. We don't see that because our patients, they're training. They are training, they are eating dietary protein. But what's so interesting, and I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but I think the pushback against Ozempic is if people aren't hungry, they're not buying junk food. They're not buying the...
So you're saying that...
I believe...
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to tell you why I...
Hostess is against Ozempic.
I will tell you why I think this is true, because when you look at the marketing budgets, whoever has the money has the microphone. And this whole confusion around dietary protein, which, let's say beef. I'm just going to pick on beef, whether it's beef, dairy, eggs, etc. They are all commodities. They're whole foods. They are under the jurisdiction of the USDA, which means if I say to you, let's just play a game, beef, you say, what's for dinner? If I say milk, what do you say?
Cool.
Does the body good?
Does the body good?
Oh, okay.
I'm going to have to echo. I'm going to switch my...
Yeah.
Okay, if I
Sorry.
say
I got you.
Pork, what do you say?
The other white meat.
See,
Dang.
nailed it.
Dang.
We could put you on Jeopardy.
Yes.
Notice that they're one-liners. They're one-liners, and they don't say anything disparaging against... Milk doesn't say, wow, this is the worst. This is so much better than almond juice. So the commodities are all put together with small farms for the most part. You don't know, you just hear milk.
Mm-hmm. Does the body good?
Right.
Yep.
But there's a ton of different milk farmers, et cetera, dairy farmers.
But they united to make that.
Exactly. They unite, they pool all their resources together, and collectively, a commodity, which is a whole food, has a marketing budget of $750 million. Like, that's it. And they can not say anything disparaging against other foods. Like, you can't say, wow, almond juice sucks. We're a much better choice. Whereas processed foods, once it is processed, it's under a different jurisdiction, like the FTC or whatever it is. And they can say, wow, almond milk is so much better for the planet. This is a great source of X, Y, and Z. So it can make these claims that can also potentially be totally erroneous. But one company, let's say PepsiCo, has a marketing budget of, I don't know, over $2 billion. So these narratives that come out, one must understand who is controlling the markets that we're seeing and who is controlling the information, the meatless Mondays, etc.
Is that a thing too?
Yes, that's a thing.
Okay.
That is a thing.
It's not a thing for me.
And that's why I appreciate it. And the reason I bring this up is because I wrote this book to provide a good evidence-based foundation for understanding, and also an understanding of the mouse with the microphone, of all these, maybe there's one or two major companies that will influence our health and influence the choices that we're making.
Mm-hmm. So, speaking of protein, I'm going to fast forward into the book again. I want to hit the highlights of this. Protein, more than just a macronutrient. Roughly 60% of your body is water. Half of the remaining 40% is protein. Your bones, ligaments, tendons, liver, brain, skin, and fingernails are all built from proteins. But this vital macronutrient is responsible for far more than just physical structures. Proteins are the master regulators of all that is happening in your body, controlling function in all tissues and organs, including muscle. They include enzymes, a class of proteins that catalyze all chemical reactions within the body. Proteins also support energy production and cell-to-cell communication. Proteins facilitate critical cellular functions, including balancing hormones, and serve as vital immune system mediators. Antibodies that inactivate pathogens as part of your immune response are a type of protein, as are many hormones, including insulin. The thyroid hormones, which help regulate your blood glucose and metabolic rate, can impact growth hormone secretion and bone health, are made from amino acids provided by proteins. The brain uses protein-rich foods to produce neurotransmitters such as endorphin, epinephrine, norepinephrine, dopamine, and serotonin, which are essential to brain cell communication. These chemicals are directly linked to neurological development, sleep, and mood regulation. Benefits of protein-forward diet: balanced blood sugar, increased energy, mental clarity, decreased body fat, improved body composition, reduced cravings. By now, I hope you're clear on the vital role that protein plays beyond just building new muscle. There's no getting around its role in all the body's systems. These functions make protein critical for longevity, metabolic function, and quality of life. And here's why you shouldn't ignore protein. It is essential for cellular functions, influences metabolism, needed to build physical structures, impacts sleep and mood, needed for brain, bone, ligaments, tendon, skin, and fingernails. So these are the things that protein are doing. And it's weird that it does all this. And like I said, for back in the day, it wasn't really part of the conversation other than we're drinking some protein shakes when we're lifting heavy to get a little bit stronger. But other than that, conversation used to be about fat and carbohydrates. No fat's bad, no carbohydrates bad, but your emphasis is protein forward.
Yeah, that's right. And it's interesting. There is something called the protein leverage hypothesis. Have you heard of that? I would have been very, very
Did you say
impressed.
protein lever?
Protein leverage hypothesis. And this is the idea that one reason obesity is the way that it is that a human will feed until they get enough protein. So if you are eating highly processed foods that are lower in protein, you will continue to eat to meet this protein need because, again, we eat protein, but we really need those amino acids. There's 20 different amino acids. Nobody, I don't think on the podcast wants to hear about all 20, but so I'll save everybody. They're in the book. So I'll save everybody that painful discussion. But at the end of the day, these amino acids all do different things. And so we're eating for individual amino acids. And that is something that we have to appreciate. And that is where kind of this idea of being protein forward comes in, is that a human will feed to get those amino acids.
And keep feeding.
And keep eating. Mm-hmm. There's a certain, and we see it across animals, that they'll go for, closer to 20% protein. Again, humans, we can go higher, certainly. And I typically don't think about it as a percentage. It's really a number. We shouldn't really think about, when we construct a diet, we shouldn't necessarily think about percentages because, again, if someone is eating 1,000 calories versus 2,000 calories, the percentages are going to mean different things. Mm-hmm.
And in the book, you start talking about how much protein you should aim for.
Yeah.
So what's your calculation?
Well, I'm just going to say this. It should be around 1 gram per pound ideal body weight. Mm-hmm. So if you are, how much do you weigh?
225.
Great. 225. 225 grams of protein, or at least 200. Mm-hmm. Do you know how many grams of protein you eat?
No.
It'd be interesting to see what you naturally are doing.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see. What'd you say? 200? Let's say you're supposed to get 200.
Yeah, I think we should track it and do and see.
I eat a lot of protein.
Great.
Yeah, I eat a lot of protein. I have protein shakes. I have protein ready to drinks, and I eat steak, and I do that a lot, and I do that on a daily basis. So we're over here eating protein, but I'll get back to you.
I'd love to know.
I just looked this up the other day. How much protein is in a 16-ounce ribeye? Do you know off the top of your head?
Around. So if you multiply what's 16 times 7, what is that number?
Oh, now we're doing math.
Okay, so 16 times 7. So 7 is 2, 7, 8, 92 grams of protein.
Yeah.
So it's probably a little bit lower because of the fat. Yeah. So the 16 ounces will be a little bit lower.
The protein.
My guess is I'm probably going to be pretty close. I bet you I'm pretty close to 200 a day, which is pretty cool.
Which is very interesting. And I will mention that the RDA, again, the recommended dietary allowance, is set at 0.37 grams per pound. Okay.
I'm protein forward. And I've been protein forward for a long time.
Because it supports training, it supports recovery, it supports all of the things. And you've tuned out the noise and likely done what you felt the best as.
Do you feel like, because you said ideal body weight, like let's say, okay, I'm 225 as well, but I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, wait, if I was like 220 or 215, that would be really my ideal weight. Is that kind of how I can, because a lot of people that discrepancy is bigger, you know?
Yeah, you're pretty close and really fit. Again, it is, so you,
Brian, you're going to talk trash right now.
you guys are terrible.
Usually when the mics are off.
1 gram per pound ideal body weight would work, but there's what I do want to point out is there's a lot of myths around dietary protein that if you were to over consume protein, which we actually don't have a number for that. Let's say you told me you were eating 500 grams. I mean, I couldn't say that for some reason that would be bad. I wouldn't have evidence to support that. There's feeding studies that go above, closer to 3.3 grams per kg.
And what does that do to somebody?
Nothing. In fact,
no bad outcome?
It's improved body composition. So they have lost body fat and they have increased lean mass. There's no data to support that protein is bad for healthy kidneys or bone. Those are the common myths. And for any women listening to the podcast, it's not going to make you bulky, which is all we ever hear about. But it would be very difficult to overeat protein. And it's also very difficult to gain weight on eating protein. And the average male is eating around 100 grams of protein a day.
Oh.
That's what the average is eating.
Yeah, that's not going to be good. Now, does that number go up if we're working out really hard?
I think 1 gram per pound ideal body weight will cover you.
Okay.
But you could go higher. You, depending on if you eat carbohydrates or not, that is good for muscle glycogen. It's good for recovery. So it's just a matter of how many calories that you can allot to. I was listening to one of your guys talk downstairs. He's like, I'm eating 5,000 calories a day.
He's probably training super hard.
Yeah.
Maybe getting ready for a fight or something.
I think he is.
And maybe even like 5,000 calories a day. He might be. Yeah. Like sometimes you have guys trying to maintain their weight through fight camp, and it can be hard because you're doing 2 days, 3 days.
Totally.
Like it gets a little crazy.
And so for how you would allocate calories is I wouldn't go below 1 gram per pound ideal body weight because he's also going to have to get calories in. Whether it's carbohydrates or fats, he's still going to have to get more calories.
You mentioned carbohydrates. We're going to fast forward to carbohydrates. Now listen, again, there's so much detail in the book about protein, about the impact, about how to eat it. So get the book for that. But you mentioned carbohydrates and you say it's no wonder that carbs have such a bad rap today in today's culture. Mouth-watering starches and sugars can make everything from grandma's cookies to your favorite breakfast scones addictive. They trigger cravings and are so easy to over-consume. Most Americans get more than 50% of their calories from carbohydrates. And our collective overeating of starchy, sugary, refined carbs has devastating effects on our metabolism, resulting in rampant obesity, insulin resistance, and type 2 diabetes. That's what's going on with carbs. You're not a person in this book that's like a carb hater.
Not at all. You got to earn it though.
Yeah. You talk about the fact that your body can make the glucose that it needs. Because there's, again, when I was talking about sometimes back in the day when I would get some of my wife's friends would get hostile with me.
Yeah.
And they would be like, your brain needs glucose. And I would say, no, it doesn't. You can fuel it with ketones. But you do mention that your body can make what it needs. Quality carbs. You talk about that as well. So talk to me about carbs. What's your assessment? What do you need? How do you earn it? What if you don't earn it?
You're going to get fat. There's no nice way to say it. The average American eats 300 grams of carbs a day and doesn't exercise. We know what's happening there. I will say carbohydrates are not bad. I am a higher carb person because I like to train and I can burn it. The idea of eating less processed foods makes a lot of sense because processed foods tend to be highly palatable. If I were to give you Hostess or Ho-Hos, whatever you want to call them, it would probably be easy to eat a lot of that. I recommend individuals, if they are metabolically healthy, you could do a 1-to-1 ratio of protein to carbs. If you are healthy and you are training, anything above that has to be earned. Now, if you are metabolically unhealthy, if you are struggling with weight, if you are overweight, if you have abnormal blood markers, you could start at 90 grams of carbohydrates a day. I wouldn't totally do an Atkins tank you out. That doesn't seem to work well for people. Again, I've seen thousands of people. It just doesn't work well. Choosing.
So is 90 grams
like,
sort of like a average of what it takes to function as a human?
Yeah, that's where smart man, that's where it came from. So if I were to make I try to make recommendations that I could back up by science. If I were to say, go 0 carbohydrates, again, I'm a physician. So what is going to work for most people and how can I put them in a position to succeed? Once I get their buy-in, then we can begin to execute and I can push them further. Starting at 90 grams, easy. So for individuals who don't have big appetites, if you're doing 30 grams 3 times a day, I mean, that would be nothing for you guys, but it could be a place to start. So if we already know that 50% of Americans are not working out, they're not utilizing or turning over the swamp pool that is also known as muscle, then anything above that number, you begin to earn.
And how do you earn more? Working out more?
You train, yeah.
What are when you're taking in carbohydrates, what you put in the book as quality carbs? You talk about vegetables, berries, beans, and lentils. Is that our good carbs?
High fiber. But for the guys that are listening here that are doing heavy training, absolutely they should be having rice or potatoes or anything to refuel. I love choosing carbohydrates that also have fiber. I would say not necessarily around training because we want that faster absorption. The training individuals that are training and don't cringe, but like my husband who's training for this marathon. I didn't tell you that. He's running the Boston Marathon.
Awesome.
He ran the New York Marathon.
Did you have to qual for the New York Marathon?
Well, he got off the couch and ran it. It was a terrible idea.
Wait, he got off the couch and
ran the New York Marathon.
So wait, don't you have to qualify for the New York Marathon? Or did he have some kind of hookup?
He always runs it for I think he ran it for the Glenn Doherty Foundation.
Okay, awesome. I was going to say they have because I think it's a marathon that you have to qualify for unless you're doing it for some charity organization or something like that.
So he ran the New York Marathon for Glenn Doherty.
Awesome.
Anyway, he got off the couch and ran that. It was a terrible idea.
How did he do?
I think he did pretty well.
Really?
I think
was he a runner growing up?
No, he's kind of built like a tree trunk kind of a guy. So no.
So he's not a runner?
No.
And he just got off the couch and ran the marathon?
Yeah.
You remember what his time was?
Is it like 4:20 a good time?
Well, 3 is a solid time.
Yeah, I don't know.
3 is really solid.
I'd have to.
But off the couch?
Yeah.
And he did this while he was in medical school?
Yeah.
Yeah. Off the couch, 4:20, we're giving him full credit.
I bet it's probably not 4:20. He's going to kill me and he's going to be like, I can't believe you said that. I do so much better.
He did it in 2:40? Okay, awesome.
But it's really funny. I go, how was that? He's like, I've done harder things.
Yeah.
He's like, but that was stupid. Next time I'll train for it. So he's run the Boston Marathon and he's going to run it again.
That's awesome.
He's kind of training for this one. But anyway, for him, he cannot seem to get by without doing some kind of glucose pack. It's just, he's struggling. He's also getting up at 4 and then running before he goes to work. And I hear you know something about that, but the 4 a.m. wake up. So if you are not trying to just simply refuel, choosing carbohydrates that have a high fiber ratio, if you're just really focused on body composition, that would be better. And of course, phytonutrients. I remember when I was dating my husband, I went to Base, and on Post, the food choices there were so bad. It was like Domino's,
Subway.
What else is there?
Yeah, then there's the PX shop.
Yes.
Like the Navy Exchange.
The Exchange.
Which just has a bunch of junk food in it, yeah.
And I'm just thinking, how are people surviving on Rippets and Baby Ruth?
Yeah, well, yeah.
So it's pretty simple. Carbohydrates are very straightforward. We shouldn't demonize it. I will say, though, if you're not training, anything above 50 grams of carbs at one dose is not ideal.
What happens after more than 50 grams in one dose?
You can drop your blood sugar. And so you'll increase insulin, increase
Going through the
glucose,
whole 9 yards.
and then you're tired. So if you are the kind of person that eats and then 90 minutes later you're tanked out, then I would consider reducing your carbohydrate load at that time.
Yep. That's you should be looking at your diet. This is for when people ask me like, well, you don't sleep very much and all this stuff. First of all, I sleep enough, but also like I eat clean. And when I don't eat clean, I feel like crap and I feel like I want to go to sleep. Well, why is that? Because you're eating like crap. So when people are like, oh, I don't have enough energy if I don't get enough sleep. It's like, cool, sleep more, yes. But also, what are you eating? Because if you're eating junk, you're going to feel like junk. That's the way it works. So there's carbohydrates. Again, the details are in the books. Get the books. The other macronutrient we got to hit is fat. You got the skinny on fat. Fear of fats is the 800-pound gorilla behind the U.S. dietary guidelines. No matter how science changes, federal policymakers still seem to act as if fats are the root of all evil. Since the early 1970s, healthcare professionals have obsessed over the idea that fats and cholesterol contribute to virtually all health problems, including heart disease, obesity, diabetes, and cancer. While the fat theory might seem logical, the evidence is based on educated guesses, assumptions, and personal beliefs. After nearly 50 years of research, the case against dietary fat has yet to be proven. In fact, the evidence gets weaker with each passing day. And then you go on to say that many popular diets recommend restricting dietary fat overall and avoiding saturated fats, mostly because fats have a higher calorie content, 9 calories per gram versus 4 and 4.
Yeah.
But fats also have a higher satiety value, meaning they tend to leave you feeling full, unlike carbohydrates, which can make you hungry, convincing you that there's always room for dessert, even when you're stuffed. Remember, weight management and body fat are determined by the number of calories you eat. That's why it's so important to master balancing your macronutrients for optimal health.
So they took cholesterol out of the guidelines. There was this, you should only have 300 milligrams of cholesterol a day. They took that out of the guidelines. I think they took it out 2015. And you still go to the doctor today, and the doctor will say, reduce your dietary cholesterol.
Oh, you're saying they took it out because they actually realized that this didn't need to be in there?
Correct, that the body makes cholesterol, and that dietary cholesterol doesn't necessarily raise your blood level cholesterol.
When you say doesn't necessarily?
I think that, and I say it cautiously, dietary cholesterol does not affect your blood level cholesterol. You make it, and you have somewhat of a cholesterol set point.
Yeah, you've got like a genetic cholesterol gig.
Yes, exactly. So that is why I said it that way. And they took it out of the guidelines, yet people are still saying, you should watch your cholesterol intake. Why? That is just an example of something that we've heard repeated over and over again to mean truth when it doesn't. Cholesterol is made by the body. And again, like you had mentioned, there is a genetic set point. I will say saturated fat, they just came up with a number. The case against saturated fat is not good. The recommendation is...
Wait, the case against it
is not good.
Is not strong, meaning that when they say saturated fat is bad, they're not correct.
Well, saturated fat could be a problem if you are overeating. If you are overeating, then saturated fat can be a problem. But if you are not overeating and your calories are in check, then saturated fat is not a problem. There are certain for certain people, it can be a problem, but you'll know that pretty quickly.
And how will you know that?
You'll see changes in abnormal lipid panels. But again, it really is a much bigger picture because there's lean mass hyperresponders. There are a whole host of people that do well on higher levels of saturated fat. It really depends. So they kind of picked this number of 10% and then 30% fat out of the air. There's not really great evidence. So basically what they did is they said 45 to 65% of your diet should be carbohydrates. This is what they say. Again, driven by policy. These are not all scientific decisions. These are decisions.
It's just guidelines after some committee got together and
that takes funding from processed food companies, from industry. And then they kept dietary protein the same, which is the only macronutrients whose need changes as you age. So your mom should have a higher protein intake than she had 10 years ago. but they've kept those numbers the same as the minimum to prevent deficiencies. And then they'll say, okay, well, 30% of your diet can be fat. And just kind of make up this
rando.
number. Exactly. Right? Maybe it's less, and maybe 10% will come from saturated fat, but it is, again, they kind of made these numbers up.
Got it. Again, I'm literally reading 2 paragraphs out of entire sections of the book. So if you want to get the details of this information, get the book. And then on top of that, you have like meal planning in the book, which obviously I'm not going to read meal plans. I'm not going to read the recipes, but you've got some good examples and quite a few good examples. Like, hey, here's something you can eat. Here's what a breakfast would look like. And one of the things, and I don't know if I've highlighted this or not in the book, so I'm just going to say it right now. Like the cornerstone of your meals is 30 grams of protein.
Yeah, that's
right?
the minimum.
That's like what you're doing. You're going to have breakfast. Cool. You start with 30 grams of protein. You also talk about eating the protein first, which I think is smart.
Yeah, because then you're not hungry. And there's really great data that individuals that have protein first and you image their brain, they're much less likely to go for the donuts or the cupcakes because of the effect of, you're looking at, do you eat donuts and cupcakes?
You haven't heard this. This guy over here, like 2 months ago, he had, what was it? What app did you use?
DoorDash.
He used DoorDash to have a dozen Krispy Kreme donuts delivered to his house, and he ate 8 of them.
You did? Well, listen, if you're going to do that, at least have your protein first.
Yes,
because then you would have had 7.
Yeah. Well,
this is a full breakdown.
Wait, I just want to know, how did you find that out?
He confessed. Look, sometimes I got to talk to him, and we have ways of making him talk, but he admitted it. He knew it was wrong. He knew it was wrong, but we talked about it. We got through it.
Yep.
We're not going to let it happen again for a while.
No.
But let me ask you this. The next day, were you more hungry for carbs?
See, and we talked about that too, where it doesn't really jam me up, which is kind of a catch-22. So he was like, "Oh, how'd you feel afterwards?" And I was like, "I felt normal."
I should have. I should have eaten the other.
Hold on. He said, "I felt normal." I said, "What'd you do?" He goes, "Well, I laid on the couch and he said I kind of fell asleep." I was like, "What do you mean you kind of?" He goes, "Well, I don't really remember what happened." So he went into full brain coma.
Yeah. Well, put it this way: it didn't jam me up like how people say, "Oh, it'll like mess you up."
So you ate back to your normal way of eating the next day?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about that too.
Okay.
Whereas and the thing is, I do believe that, and I'm sure I feel that somewhere. But yeah, when you're like, you have it planned out, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna pound these donuts, and then I'm gonna go back living my normal life.
So you threw away the other 4?
No, I gave them to my nephew. Or he had, I think he had
I
like
want to
2
know
or
what
3
was
away
going to
too.
happen if he had those other 4. I bet y'all.
It's very possible. Yeah, but
the next day, you mean?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I
I
might
would've
get
kept
into
them.
them. Yeah, but do you? And this is probably part of the holistic kind of situation where this is what I feel more so than I feel. Oh, the craving for those donuts in the back fridge or whatever. I feel like, oh, wait a second. This is one of the rare times they're around. It's not like this is going to become a habit or nothing, because it's not like I'm going to go back and get more donuts. But they're
never
here.
know.
You got
that DoorDash, you're going to start getting ads.
That is true, but it's less likely. You see what I'm saying? But then when you're like, oh yeah, this is kind of an opportune time. Know, it's basically the psychology of having junk food around versus not around. So then it's like, okay, well, they're here. They're not always here. Let me pound these and move on, kind of a thing. But if they're not
rationalization,
there, that's the point.
It's never
that's
as good as you think it's going to be. And I think people hold out for, I always think, what are the things that really trip people up is they have this idea that it's the last meal or the thing that is going to be so good, and they dream about it and they think about it, but it's like this hedonic reward. It's never as good. It's never as good.
I would say, well, put it this way, in the spirit of accuracy, it is rarely as good, because every once in a while, like this one time, I mean, not that, but this one time I was like, hey, I'm going to have this cheat day, or it's more of a cheat meal. I'm going to do the whole day.
Cheat day, really?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
But the cheat meal, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to go to Jack in the Box. Back in the day, I used to get Jack in the Box, the sourdough one.
We called that Jacked in the Box.
Oh, hell yeah. Nonetheless, I get the Jack in the Box. Bro, it comes and it's all fresh and it fulfilled my expectations. But aside from that, like even the Krispy Kremes, it didn't really fulfill. You're right. It rarely is like what you like really wanted. And
then we forget. And then we forget as humans, there's this hedonic reward, and it's the hedonic treadmill. You think that next donut, and then all of a sudden there's diminishing returns, because I guarantee you by donut number 6, you're like, this was a dumbass idea.
Yeah.
This is like,
Bro, it seemed
doesn't
like
even
he was
taste
just
good.
laying on the couch with powdered sugar all over his face. He just curled up in a ball.
The thing is, I see how that can be, but I do feel like in my specific case it was different, just because, bro, I know what I'm doing, and I know like tomorrow it's not going to be like that. It's not like that. This is not a new thing necessarily, like a new pattern that I'm going to like, fall down.
I got a protocol, recently implemented protocol. I don't implement new protocols very often, but I've had a protocol that I've had for a long time, which is if I feel like I need a day off, I won't take it today. I'll take it tomorrow. So if I'm like, I don't really feel like working out today. I think I might be tired, and I probably need some rest day. And the literature says that you need to rest more, and you just tell yourself all these things. If I go through that and I say, yep, I'm definitely need a day off, then I say, cool, you get to take it tomorrow. But I still got to do the work today. So then I go do the work, and guess what? The next day you feel fine and you get through it.
That works.
I actually just implemented this. If you want to eat something really good, like out that's not on the path,
It's not
you can
on
do
the
it.
path.
You got to get it
Yeah.
tomorrow. You got to wait till tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that
I
right
can
there,
see it. I can
generally
see it.
speaking, like I've been in January, I was like, oh, I'm fired up. I'm going to get a pizza at the end of January. I'm going to get a deluxe, just super good pizza. I'm going to go to the pizza restaurant.
Yeah.
Like
Make sure it's fresh.
we're going to do this whole thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And right now, I still haven't gotten it because I got through, like I say I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I just keep saying I'll do it tomorrow. And then I realized the next day, I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
and then 2 weeks later, I'm like, oh, I want to get that pizza. And then I'll go, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow, you're cleared hot. But then I get to tomorrow, I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to fall off the path.
Yeah, I can see
So it's
that.
a good little protocol.
Yeah.
Implementing the same protocol for days off of work,
Yeah.
working out. Implement the same protocol if you want to freaking just go haywire with the damn 8 Krispy Kremes.
Amen.
And have you ever gone off the path?
Oh yeah. I mean, I eat. I'm totally normal. Like, I mean, I'll definitely eat. If there's a good pizza out there, I'm chocolate chip cookies. Let's go. We make Moke chocolate chip cookies, which actually do a really good job of filling the gap on that. But to me, like, my protein shakes taste like dessert, so I'm very, very gratified and satisfied when I get done eating steak and salad. I have some kind of meat and some kind of salad basically every night, and I have Caesar salad or I have some kind of vinaigrette. Like, what is it? It's balsamic vinegar and
Sounds fancy.
and olive oil.
Very fancy.
It ain't that fancy. I put them in a thing and I mix them and I put them on the piece of salad and I eat it. But when I get done with that, sometimes the sweet tooth is still there. Protein shake all day. I'll have a chocolate milk protein shake and that's good to go. That's totally satisfying. I have hot chocolate. So I take protein powder, milk protein powder, put it in hot milk, and I make monk fruit whipped cream. Actually, my wife makes it. She takes monk fruit.
That sounds really good.
She takes monk fruit and she whips it in whipped cream, and it's delicious. And it tastes like regular whipped cream, but all those things are really, really good. So yeah, if I'm like out with my kids and we're at some awesome restaurant and they're like, hey, we have tiramisu for dessert. Like, tiramisu is not something you can get. That's not, your family, your wife's not making tiramisu.
Yeah. It's not just cruising.
It's
in the
not.
pantry.
Yeah. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna run. Like, I can't pull it out of the cabinet.
Yeah.
So if there's a situation like that, we call that a situation, right? Am I gonna get into that? Tiramisu or whatever? So yeah, I'm not crazy. I'm not obsessed with food. I don't even like. Some people love food, right? Like, I will take no time. Like, people that like barbecuing and they marinate it all day and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't do any of that.
Same.
If it was up to me, I would eat like chicken from a can and mayonnaise, and that's like I put nuts in there, and that's like a great meal to me. It tastes fine. Do I enjoy having awesome steak? 100%. Do I want to cook it and clean it and all that other stuff? Not really.
No.
So I'd say, that's kind of me. I have I have chocolate, like 80% chocolate, which is pretty low in sugar. I eat that. That's very gratifying to me. I find that if you go below 70%, you want more. It's like you can actually tell. 70% chocolate, you want more chocolate. 80% or higher, you have like 2 squares and you're like, okay,
no thanks, you're good.
Yeah, you're good. Because it tastes good, but it doesn't taste that good.
Right.
And it probably lacks the whatever sweetness for the mental dopamine, like repeat mode, like again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not crazy. I'm not obsessed with food. If I feel like chowing down on something that's, that is not great, since I started making milk, I used to eat more ice cream. I would make mint chocolate chip milkshakes. Like take a scoop of ice cream, put it in a glass, and put milk in there and stir it up. Now I just have mint chocolate chip milk, which is delicious, and it tastes to me like dessert. So I've covered a lot of those bases.
And you also train a lot, though.
I train a lot,
right?
Yes, and that's true. Like if you go surfing and you did jiu-jitsu and you lifted in a day, like bring a pizza on because you need it. You need to have some of that energy, some of that food, some of that fuel. So yeah, I'm not crazy. I'm not obsessed with food, but I also am not stupid. And I also recognize, I always tell people, like, remember what it feels like when you get done working out. It feels good. Like there's very few situations, 1% of the time, do you get done working out and you feel worse. Very seldom does that happen. It's the same thing with food. Very seldom do you eat 8 freaking donuts, like Echo Charles, and you don't feel like, dude, I don't feel as good. Very seldom does the good feeling outlast the last swallow of the infraction.
The infraction. Yeah.
So I know that, and but I'm not obsessed with it. And I work out a lot. That's one thing, as this kind of like a lot of this new medicine has come out. You mentioned it. You were like, I hate to say this, but working out is more important than diet. And as that has become, because in like the world of bodybuilding, it's actually flipped, right?
Right, but that's not exactly. And it's also not physiologically natural. I mean, there's only so much muscle somebody could put on from a physiologically natural perspective. But yes, it is.
But it's flipped in the bodybuilding world because you're trying to get shredded,
right?
And the aesthetic shred is more based on your diet than it is based on your working out. Of course, you need to do cardio and lift, and if you do those things correctly, you can eat a little bit worse. But for the most part, if you're going to be a bodybuilder, it's more about diet than it is about lifting. I guess for a true bodybuilder, it's also more about the steroids that you're taking to get that jacked. But so it's like steroids, diet, and then lifting. Yeah. And not to discredit the guys that do steroids, you also have to lift super heavy.
Correct.
You can't just do steroids and then expect to be Ronnie Coleman, right?
Right.
Ronnie Coleman freaking lifted heavy as hell,
and they're
hard as hell.
They're very disciplined and
for sure,
deeply focused. You mentioned something about very rarely do you train and then feel worse. It goes back to this. People will always talk about endorphins. Okay, we know this, but when you train, skeletal muscle releases these myokines. It also affects something called BDNF in the brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It helps with neurogenesis, and it helps with memory, cognition, and there are components to training that help with mood.
I wrote about this in the book called Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual. I wrote about all those things because it's not just bro science. 99.9% of the time when you get done working out, you feel better than if you didn't work out. So speaking of exercise, and like I said, there's you cover meal plans, you got recipes in there.
Listen, why did I do this? I did that because we have to eliminate excuses. Why is it that 70% of Americans are either overweight or obese? Like, why? And then why is it that the majority of people don't work out? I had to create something that if you believed that we can be, as humans, strong, capable, and resilient and have capacity, I needed to take out any excuse. And that's why I put all that stuff in there.
Yeah. So get the book, get those details. But then we're going to go into the next part, which we were just kind of starting to bump into anyways, which is training, which is exercise. And you say this: exercise is your body's birthright. We humans were designed for physical movement, and our bodies are capable of extraordinary feats. Don't think of training as an activity with health benefits. Instead, consider it as a baseline requirement for wellness and an essential component of maintaining health and protecting longevity. Exercise is traditionally divided into, and I'm fast forwarding, there's more details. Exercise is traditionally divided into either endurance, cardio, or strength, weights. This is fine. This is a fine starting point for understanding the different ends of the spectrum, but the interplay of different activity types is more complex, and many common beliefs around effective training haven't kept pace with research advancements. And then you go into talk about resistance exercise training, endurance training, and then high intensity interval training, HIIT, which surprisingly, it's been around for a long time.
For a long time.
But people really have more recently understood the effectiveness of it. HIIT is and this is going from the book, is interval training exercise that calls for short bursts of activity followed by short periods of lower intensity movements. So this is what we're talking about. You got to lift. You got to do some kind of endurance. And you should probably combine those two together to do some kind of high intensity interval training. Yes,
and I'll say that people will talk about this zone 2 cardio. Zone 2 cardio is having its moment right now. The longer endurance, yes, it's great for VO2 max, etc. We've talked about that ad nauseum. But I would say from a practical aspect that you can improve your VO2 max, you can improve your health status by doing high intensity exercise. So the less time you're training, the more you have to get after it. Mm-hmm. It's not about being like the cardio bunny or, well, I weightlifted for 45 minutes. If you do not have time, you should up the intensity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. That's one of those things that you have levers. And what's cool is, for me personally, there's days where some high intensity workout, like I'm feeling worn down, I'm feeling like, eesh. You know what I'm going to do? Something that's longer endurance. There's also times where don't have time, or sometimes I don't feel like going for an hour long run. Guess what I feel like doing? Jacking some steel, doing some deadlifts, whatever the case may be. So having all of these in your repertoire is very important. And then making sure that you don't focus on the one that you like the most, right?
Yeah.
Because it's real easy to be like, well, I like to be jacked. Mm-hmm. And Echo's over here on his 9th set of bicep curls. But even Echo has opened up his mind now in the past 10 years where he does Metcons with high intensity, interval training, still lifts heavy. Do you ever do like long, slow cardio type thing?
Nowadays I'm not, but
only when he eats donuts.
Yeah,
other than because the jiu-jitsu falls in that category. Jiu-jitsu is beautiful. Jiu-jitsu really does help you with it's a little bit of HIIT, but it's also endurance. Like you go and roll for an hour, which is pretty common to go and train for an hour, 5-minute rounds. But during the rounds, you're not going 100% for 5 minutes. You can't do that. You can go, but sometimes you got to go really hard for 32 seconds. Yeah. And then you get in a position you can kind of settle down. You get a little bit of, then you go going again. So jiu-jitsu is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I do. Yes. Like go for runs for like 30, 45 minutes or something like that. But no, not as often.
And I think that, Jocko, what you said in the beginning is you don't stop. You continue to do it. And that's, again, what is the ultimate outcome that we want is we don't want to get injured so that people can continue to train. And then using movements that you would use in real life that are more functional, that maybe have rotation, whether it's swinging a kettlebell or, doing a chop or, carrying heavy weight. Doing
unbalanced weight.
Exactly, yeah. Unbalanced weight. Doing things that potentially translate, because we're not training to get better at exercise. Mm-hmm. We're training to get better at life and to be more capable at life. Mm-hmm. What are the actions that we can take that will move us closer to do that, whether it's jiu-jitsu, throwing around kettlebells or unbalanced kettlebell weights or putting something overhead. Those kinds of movements we have to continue to do. Mm-hmm. Because it's not, I hate to say this, it's not an if, but it's a when. we train for life because there is typically a time something will happen, whether you have the flu for a week or you, I don't know, get injured, something happens. You have to plan for those times. Mm-hmm. And I know that that's morbid, but the more you can build up your body and be able to have movements and motions that will translate to real life, that is your best defense.
Yeah. And it's real easy. And this is a huge ongoing conversation that I've had with Bert Soren. You know who Bert Soren is from Soren X anyways. Mm-hmm. He was like a thrower in college. He's a stud. But I was talking to him about just movements and how if there's movements where, let's say for whatever reason, like I hurt my arm very bad doing jiu-jitsu. I couldn't straighten my arm and I couldn't do overhead squats for 9 months. And when I finally went back to do overhead squats, I could straighten my arm. I'm like, okay, I could barely do one. And so I was like right back with the PVC pipe, meaning no weight. And it would have been real easy to be like, well, you know, I'm getting old. And that's pretty much your ego talking of like, well, you know, I used to be able to do that, but I don't need to do that anymore. I don't have anything to prove. Or your ego saying like, oh, if I can't do it, then I'm just going to pretend that it doesn't exist type thing. Or you say, you know what? I'm not going to submit this movement. I'm not going to give up this movement. I'm going to get it back. And that's what you do. You start with the PVC pipe, then you go with the bar, then you put the 10s on, then the 25s, then the 35s, then you got the 45s. You're kind of back in the game. And you can definitely rebuild what you've lost. So again, if you're in a situation in life where you stopped working out for whatever reason, and you used to be able to bench 3 wheels and now you can barely do a freaking push-up, well, guess what? You can get it back. You might not be able to get it all back, whatever. You know what you should do? Try and get it back. And it's the same thing with your squats. It's the same thing with any movement that you could do. You can likely get back to something close to that. And if you can't get close, get as close as you can.
And you know what I'm hearing? I'm hearing you say set standards instead of goals. Set standards for how you're going to operate instead of goals.
I like that, and I do that. So I have some kind of like workouts that I do where whether it's pull-ups, whether it's dips, whether it's squats, where like, let's say pull-ups. I'm going to do 300 pull-ups in this workout. And that's just kind of what we're doing. And it may be, I've been sick, I've hurt my shoulder, and I haven't been able to do as many pull-ups but you got to go, I'm going to do 300 pull-ups. And it's going to take me however long it's going to take me. Maybe it's going to take a half an hour. Maybe it's going to take 40 minutes. Maybe it's going to take me an hour. But I'm going to do them. And then you got to hold that standard. So yeah, I believe you can have standards, or you should have standards of what you're going to be able to do. And then if you fall below the standard, you got to work to get it back. Because I think a lot of people fall below the standard, and instead of working to get it back, they just set a new standard a little bit lower. Yeah. Not ideal. So you got to be careful of that. Again, in the book, you got all kinds of, you go through like various workouts that you can do. You got beginner level workouts, you got intermediate level workouts, you got a bunch of really good information that people can use to kind of get their workouts going.
And I think for the very fitness savvy people, what this does is it puts science behind the bro science. Mm-hmm. And that becomes important if we're trying to reach and change the world from this obesity-centric view to more of a muscle-centric view, is we have to have science behind the reasons and behind the protocols. And so, again, let's say someone is advanced at training, they're like, I don't need a training program. The information there is meaningful because it will allow an individual to talk about the science of muscle health and why it's so much more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also give them maybe a little bit of direction or a little bit of better understanding. I've been very happily surprised over the past, I guess, how long have we been doing this podcast for? 8 years?
8-ish.
Something like this?
Wow.
So I've been very pleasantly surprised when my personal experiences align with Echo's bro science and align with legitimate, whether it's Huberman, whether it's Jordan Peterson, whether it's you or Kirk Parsley or Peter Attia. And the things that I've been doing where I'm like, oh, that's why that was effective. Occasionally it's like, oh, maybe I was a little too focused on that. But most of the time it's been, oh yeah, okay. And here's a stupid example. Huberman's like, oh, you should, when you go outside in the morning, you shouldn't wear sunglasses because they block UV light. Well, for me, when I run, I sweat, and so I don't like to wear glasses in the morning. And I run in the morning, so I don't like to wear glasses because it gets sweat on the glasses, so I just don't wear them. So it's just luck. But now I actually go, oh, that's actually a good thing. So these little things that line up, you have better understanding, and you can then focus on them. So it's the same thing that you're saying with this book. You can read through these things and start to understand maybe some of the methodology and the science behind the bro science.
And where you're at, right? If you want to order your own blood labs, you have to have metrics so you have an understanding of where you are to ultimately identify where you're going to be. If you continue, let's say you're not training hard enough. Let's say you're not eating right for your body. It's going to show up. And if you look at it, then you can circumvent a downstream effect early on. And that's the real goal, is how do we allow people to live to their full capacity? And it's not just about doing things. It's about doing the right things at the right time for the right outcome.
Fast forward a little bit in the book, you've got a section here about mindset, and you've got the 5 fundamental attributes for mindset here. The first one that you talk about is courage. Why is courage number 1?
Well, can I tell you, books typically take time to write. And I actually have an even better mindset component that I would love to share.
Let's go.
I've, and you and I were talking about this prior, is that a portion of the practice is all operators. And there are certain themes that I have seen, and I'd love to tell you a story. So I had one patient had come to me. He'd been in the teams. He's a breacher, been in the teams for 20 years, never been injured, was home from a deployment on his motorcycle going 5 miles an hour. A 17-year-old girl texting and driving took him out, and he lost his leg. He had come to my clinic, and, I was like, hey man, are you okay? He's, oh, yeah, I'm tired, normal response. Totally no big deal, right? This was months after. Maybe this was 6 or 8 months after. And I was like, no, dude, how are you really doing? I'm 5'1", I'm married to a team guy. I take care of a lot of team guys. He's going to tell me. And he looked at me like I asked him, where was the box of tampons? And he was like, oh. He's like, you mean my leg? He's like, doc, that was like 6 months ago. Like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy actually was totally neutral about the impact that whatever this thing had happened. And here in my mind, I'm telling this whole story about he's never going back to the teens. He's never going to be deployed. He's going to have to do X, Y, and Z. And he was very neutral. And I called my husband. I was like, oh, hey, so-and-so was in the clinic. And it was like dead silence on their line. And he was like, honey, yeah, what are you talking about? That was like 8 months ago. And it was at that moment. So yes, I talk about courage and I talk about these attributes, but I would say the most important component, again, it's trends over time of who you see, was that there's a level of neutrality that those individuals that exceed at the highest level have. There isn't a story. They don't never get too high and then they never get too low. It is kind of controlled neutrality. And I have seen that over and over and over again. And that's actually what struck me.
Yeah, I mean, I just call it balance. I wrote a book called The Dichotomy of Leadership, and like the key component of a good leader is that they're balanced. And like you just said, when I win, I'm not jumping for joy. When I lose, I'm not throwing my fists into the wall. I'm going to be neutral. I'm going to be balanced. When good things happen, I'm not going to let them go to my head. When bad things happen, I'm not going to let them tear me apart. When I'm not going to get overly emotional, but I'm not going to be too detached. So it's just being balanced absolutely is a key component. And also, flying off I don't know if you've seen this, but I would imagine that if you have someone that's going to focus on their health and so they become totally obsessed, and they go very extreme, that's probably not going to last as long than if they go, okay, I'm going to start doing the right things. I'm not going to go crazy. Like even when you're just asking me, like, do I eat chocolate chip cookies? It's like, well, yeah, I do. I like chocolate chip cookies. Do I like whatever, these, mint chocolate chip milkshake or tiramisu? Yeah, it's like I'm not going crazy. So I think does it apply there too with people trying to like change their lives without going to the extreme where it's unsustainable?
Does it apply? Yes. And I would say that the higher a person goes, the lower they go. It's not this baseline. So let me give you an example. I take care of a lot of entrepreneurs, and right before a big event, let's say they put on a huge event in Vegas and they are so amped up and they are just on a high. I can predict that as high as they go, on the flip side is as low as they're going to go. And at that peak and at that trough, those are points of high vulnerability. Those are the points where they're going to go off their training program. Those are the points maybe they're going to drink more. Maybe they're going to buy another car. Maybe they're going to cheat on their wife, like whatever. The extremes at that peak and that trough, that is when they are most vulnerable. How does that translate to health? Nothing will take a high performer out as fast as those highs and lows. And it's actually, people will say, oh, the highs are great. No, because there is this almost this dopamine drive that it becomes depleted, and you don't go to if one of these many knives was a baseline, you don't go to a baseline. You mirror as high as you're going to go is as low as you go.
Yeah.
And if you mitigate that, then you can prevent these predictable downstream effects of human nature. Humans are interesting. They're so shocked by their own human nature. They cannot believe you show me a person, you show me their habits, I will tell you how successful they are. Because there are just patterns, and they are shocked each time by their own humanness.
I got to see, clearly you get to see that in the teams because you get guys going on deployment. The deployment is like one kind of high because you're very gratified with what you're doing. And then you come home and maybe now you've got like problems because, you had this girlfriend and she took all your money and your dog. And like, so you go this up and down thing. But it was a really condensed version of that was fighters in the MMA world. Like grueling camp for 8 weeks, getting beat up, and then the final weight cut, very draining, very low, and then they go out and fight, they win. It's like, man, I've been to those parties. Like those dudes are freaking going crazy. They're making so many bad decisions that night, or they lose. And now it's, guess what they're doing? Same thing. Bunch of bad decisions, just terrible. Whether it's the high or the low, the freaking performance or the activities following a big win or a big loss are almost the same,
yes.
Which is kind of crazy. The pros, and these guys actually, I'm talking about professional fighters, but the really successful guys, they win. It's like, cool, I won. They're happy, but they're gonna continue to train. They're not like, you can, when the guy says, I'm going to be back in the gym on Monday, when the guy says that, that's a really important thing. When a guy says, I just need some downtime and I'm going to, I love when I hear a fighter say, I'll be back in the gym on Monday. Win or lose, I'll be back in the gym on Monday. What a good statement to make. But when you say, well, it was a really tough camp and I'm just looking to, no, I'm going to warn against that. Be careful of it.
The pros do exactly what you said. The people at the top have a level of neutrality where the big accomplishments don't affect them and the big losses also don't affect them. The neutrality is really, I don't want to say superpower, that sounds pretty stupid, but it is a level of capacity that rookies don't have. And I see that with newer entrepreneurs or individuals like that. And those that cultivate that capacity of neutrality, they're exceptional.
Yep. Stay balanced, everybody. You got courage. But so before you added balance and neutrality into this, you had courage, perseverance. Obviously, got to stick with things. Self-discipline, clearly, big supporter of that over here. Adaptability, that's a good one to remember because things aren't going to go as planned. You're not going to have that food prep that you did and you left it at home, and now what are you going to do? Or you go on traveling, and you talk a lot about traveling in here because you travel, but the gym didn't have what I want to work out, so I'm just not going to do anything. You got to be adaptable, and then resilience. These are kind of the key components that you talk about.
Yeah. And courage, this is going to be surprising, but there is a level of courageousness that is required to feel worthy of excellence.
Expand on that.
Believe it or not, when an individual doesn't seem to be reaching their full potential, let's say I'm seeing a guy or a girl and they're not getting it together. Often times it comes down to they don't feel worthy of having the health or the body or the discipline or the thing that comes with that execution, which is surprising. But worthiness, feeling worthy of actually being that person, trips people up.
What does that look like? Like, give me a little bit of an example.
Yeah. Let's say there's a really successful guy that is, he's very successful at his business. He has all this outward discipline. The business is a multi-million-dollar business. He's running teams. He's doing great. And he is a slob.
Mean physically?
Physically.
Mm-hmm.
He is able to execute on the external business and have external discipline, but there is no internal discipline, because that internal discipline would require a bit of courage for him to identify with something else, become a different type of person, feel worthy of the success that he's having. And that may seem silly. Like if a team guy's listening, they may be like, come on, get after it. I'm gonna rip off my shirt, whatever. But for many people, an unexamined mind will lead to components of sabotage, and they will only ever go as high as they feel worthy. An individual will feel worthy in business and not feel self-worthy of the success that they have obtained. The only way through that is oftentimes a courageous step. It does require courage to cultivate a way of familiarity. So the less than version of themselves becomes familiar. And when we understand familiarity, that becomes the normal. Even though it's not meaningful, it's just normal. Mm-hmm. And courage is required to question that behavior, that component of health and wellness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just get comfortable with this normal state that you're in, and it takes some courage to say, I'm not going to live like that anymore.
Yeah, and the lack of discipline becomes familiar, and an individual will be surprised by that and will often fall back on the zone of comfort. And it's not that they feel comfortable being a slob. It's that is what they know to be the normal.
Yeah. Can't let that happen. I'm going to close out the book. Just look again. I just read some highlights of the book. I'm going to close out with this one little section that you've got here. It says, choose your hard. Far too often, and usually without much thought, people default into taking the easiest path. Choosing to do things the least difficult way is what we are programmed to do. It's part of who we are, or maybe who we have become. Unfortunately, doing what's convenient right now is no lasting strategy. It merely makes things more difficult later on, in virtually all cases. Instead of always looking for the path of least resistance, try choosing to do the hard things in life. That's what makes us strong. So, like I said, the book is several hundred pages long, almost 400 pages long. So there's tons of information in the book for people to refer to go back to compare what they've been doing, where they've been doing things right, maybe where they've been doing things wrong. So, forever strong. That's what we're doing. What else you got going on besides the book?
I actually have a podcast.
Okay. What's the podcast called?
The Dr. Gabrielle Lyon Show. Shocking.
Yep. Hey.
Easy to find. Very easy to find. We also have a membership. People can find out about that on the website. It is if people have questions, they can join. We have an expert on every week. Pretty cool. To clear up some of these questions, whether it's hormone questions, etc. I do have a practice, and I have a concierge medical practice. People can find out more information. Myself, there are other providers, and two really important. And obviously, you can find me on Twitter or Facebook or X, etc., or YouTube.
And all those things, very conveniently, are all at Dr. Gabrielle. I almost messed that up. Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. .com, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon on YouTube, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You're there, which is called X now, by the way.
Yes. I wanted to mention, may I mention two other things that I think are really important. We didn't get a chance to talk about this, but I'm hoping at some point in the future we will. There is a foundation called Hunter 7 Foundation that does early detection for veterans and military operators and those in the military, which has done a really great job at early cancer detection. It's called Hunter 7 Foundation. I strongly recommend people check it out. It's really important. The other thing that I would like to mention is SEAL Future Foundation. For those individuals listening, for those operators and their family listening, I sit on the board of health for SEAL Future Foundation. We see a lot of the guys coming out and their families, their wives, their family members. So I think that that's also something very important to mention.
No, those are awesome organizations. I knew about the SEAL Future Foundation, obviously. I didn't know about Hunter 7 until you told me about it. That's just awesome. So many of these diseases, cancers, if you catch them early, they're no factor. If you catch them late, they kill you. Right. Like it's insane. And so to give people what Hunter 7 does, and again, you explained this to me before you hit record, giving these former special operations guys this screening to catch these things early and save their lives. And you were telling me that there's a big percentage of them that they get caught, just like with any part of the populace. If you don't get screened and you don't get looked at, these cancers just grow inside your body. And guess when you notice them? When you freaking have major issues. And by then, oftentimes, it's too late. So that's an awesome organization. And then, the SEAL Future Foundation, another great organization that helps take care of SEALs. And, the job of being a SEAL, whether there's a war going on or not, is really hard on your body.
It's really hard.
You're shooting Carl Gustav rockets. You're sitting there doing explosive breaching. You're getting beat up in boats. You're jumping out of airplanes, landing hard. You're firing machine guns. You're firing 50 caliber machine guns. Everything that you're doing, you're around all those chemicals that all those things produce, explosives. You're lacking sleep. Like there's everything, just about everything that you can do is bad for you. Like the job itself is bad for you. Look, you work out to try and stay in shape for the job, but the job itself is not good for you. So to have these guys live through that for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, by the time they get done with that, they're probably going to need some help medically. So these are awesome organizations that help out with that. And it's awesome that someone like you, with your knowledge, is on the board and connected with those things and getting people out there, because obviously I am a big supporter of that community, and these organizations that are helping that community is awesome. And clearly you're a supporter of that community as well, since you made the fatal error of meeting a team guy one night, and that's what happened.
I actually told him that there was zero chance, and I did not pick up the phone for like 2 months. It just would not stop.
But you know what? He had courage. He had resilience. He had balance. Like he had the mindset to make it happen. That goes a long way. So does that get us up to speed? We're good. We got Dr. Gabrielle Lyon.com, and then you got Twitter, YouTube.
Yeah.
You got your podcast, same title. So good universal titling. I like it. Does that get us up to speed?
It does. Yes, sir.
Echo Charles, what do you got for questions?
Do you remember what year you were in Hawaii?
No, I don't.
What about roughly? Was it before 2001?
Yeah.
Where?
Yeah.
Where?
Kauai. I was on Kauai.
On Kauai, my hood.
Really? Are you from Kauai?
I'm from Kauai.
Are you serious?
But at that time, because I went to UH, University of Hawaii.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So I was probably there.
That's my favorite place in the world. So we lived in Princeville.
Oh, right on
and
North
then
Shore.
and then we Princeville, and then we were near Honolulu.
Yeah, North Shore. Hell yeah, it's good.
I love Kauai.
I grew up on the south side.
Okay, and is that Poipu?
Poipu.
Yeah, hell yeah, all day, right on. Yeah. So from 95 to 99, I was on Oahu.
Okay.
Though, at school. That's cool.
That's amazing.
Right on. Princeville is super nice though.
Yeah.
Were you with like a rich family?
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
Princeville right there.
they were, but it
rich.
wasn't that rich at the time. Now it's just like crazy.
Oh, yeah, Princeville. Also, so if I go to the doctor hypothetically, and they say, hey, all your I get my blood work done. They say, hey, all your numbers are great, except your cholesterol's kind of high.
So is this for the podcast, or is this
Yes.
not for the podcast?
No, this is the deal.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Because
Hell
I was like, I'll take care of that. I got that. I can do that for you.
Yeah, see,
we
and-
should do a. I'm happy to do that. We can do a full cardiac screening, like a legitimate, not just cholesterol.
Okay, so I used to drink a lot, and I was like, hey, like I'm getting older now, so, and this was like probably like a decade of solid drinking, the
That's
kind where
impressive.
like this could be problematic
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of thing. I wasn't feeling nothing, except for every once in a while I'd feel like kind of like dismal, just in general. We'll say. So I was like, all right, let me get my blood work. I don't need my liver just conking out one day, so let's get some blood work done, see all the things. So, but I would still work out, still do all that stuff, right? Even sometimes twice a day, this whole thing. So I went, got the blood work done, and everything looked good. Everything. After just a decade of solid drinking and like all this stuff. So I'm like, frick, it's probably because I'm still working out hard. But they did say my cholesterol's high. Now, another guy that I know who's kind of this athletic type or whatever, he was like, "Bro, don't worry about that, because that could mean other stuff, There's like more to it than that." Is that true?
I would agree with that. We wouldn't just look at cholesterol. We'd look at something called an ApoB. We'd look at insulin resistance. We'd look at a lipid particle panel. There's other things. I would not typically just treat off of total cholesterol. That's
So he
a little
was
bit
like,
archaic, I think.
and obviously, with my bachelor's, well, it's more of an associate's in bro science. I was like, hey.
I think you got a doctorate, bro, in bro science.
I was like, hey. So he was like, hey, I'm going to prescribe you some medication. But I was like, no, I'm not going to take the medication. And I didn't take the medication, never did. And then that's when I talked to my other friend, and he was like, no, there's more to it than that. Don't worry.
To a different bro.
Yeah. We put our heads together.
That's funny. It depends if it's familial hypercholesterolemia. We would really have to look at the full picture. And then the next level of that would be doing something called a GB Insight. And what that is that would be a genetic profile of the kind of medication or where. So let me take a step back. It will show us where the defect is. Oh. Are you absorbing too much of the lipids? Are you not excreting them, etc.? So it would show us exactly where the challenge is as to why your levels would be high. And then it allows to pinpoint treatment. What kind of medication would an individual use? What is the target? So that's what I would do. And then finally, really getting imaging. So it's not just blood. You have to see something called, what we use is a clearly scan. So it shows hard and soft plaque.
Oh, damn. Is that like a DEXA scan? Is that
not
different?
Quite. It's a CT scan, and they put dye in you, and it'll look at. It's a whole thing. It's a whole situation.
Yes, ma'am.
But I will tell you, I trial all of this stuff out on my husband.
Okay.
So it's all good, and as long as I prepped you before, but that is very valuable because you have to address a challenge despite where the standards of care are. If there is an inclination that this has to be addressed, we should look at it from a comprehensive view, because a more progressive physician will be able to identify the pillars. For example, whether it's a genetic test, whether it's an ApoB, whether it is insulin resistance, etc., and then take an action.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And kind of confirmed my deal, as always. Last question. So let's say grapes, right? Grapes, the fruits. Can we overeat grapes?
Yeah, you can overeat anything. Grapes, again, could they be healthy? Totally. They do have more fructose. You're not going to overeat fructose on just grapes. But
yeah. So because we're talking about overeating.
I feel like
the
there's
carbs.
more to this.
There is. It's a little bit of it's a little bit of a Pandora's box, but I think grapes are great.
Yeah.
They do have sugars. If you really wanted to get crazy with it, you could throw a glucose monitor on yourself, eat a whole bunch of grapes, see how high your blood sugar goes, and then see how you feel.
I have these grapes, right? So last night I ate 2 steaks, some rice, and then we had some grapes. You know, with the kids, they're fun, and there are some really good grapes. You know, some grapes are a lot more sweet than others.
Yeah.
You know, these were the way on this side of the spectrum of sweetness. And I felt like I overate the grapes because I was already full, but I was like, bro, I can't stop eating these grapes. See what I'm saying? Like, is that a thing? Because it's not like blueberries, for example. Blueberries taste super good, but after a while, you're like, bro, I'm kind of done with these blueberries after a little bit. But the grapes weren't like that. See what I'm saying? I felt like they were overriding the whole system.
Did you eat the whole thing?
No.
The whole stalk?
I could have. I would have probably if I didn't catch myself.
No, I think it's. I think that
good.
with your amount of activity, it would be very difficult to really overconsume. I have less worry about that.
Is it a red flag though that I was like super full from all the steak and rice and stuff, and then I was still like I can't stop eating it? Isn't that like a small red flag in and of itself?
No, because
Okay.
the truth is you could have stopped eating it. You didn't want to.
Yes. Yeah. I just felt like it was like an addiction being carried out right there in front of my eyes.
But
So
if it
psychologically,
wasn't an addiction, you would have kept going. That's what she's saying.
like.
You caught yourself.
Yeah, but I'm a very strong and disciplined person as far as addiction go for the most part. But I'm just saying, let's say I'm a little kid or something like this, you know, and I'm like, are these grapes genetically engineered? You know how they put extra stuff in it to make them taste sweeter or whatever?
They have definitely changed fruits over time to make them more sweet and more palatable.
Yeah.
Yes. Have you ever had grapes that are just like heirloom, not heirloom
like
grapes.
wild caught grapes?
Oh, terrible!
Or
Anything wild that has never been engineered at all is just awful.
Have you ever had the cotton candy grapes?
Yeah.
Have you had those?
Yes.
Have you had those?
I have. Yeah.
Those are crazy.
Yeah, that's part of why I'm saying it, because grapes are one of those ones. There's these, I think they call them black grapes. They're super dark purple. Probably the same way. You can't stop eating them because they're so sweet. It's like, I don't know, there's something going on is what I feel. But if you're telling me, hey, these are fruits, so just like celery or blueberries or whatever, eat as many as you need.
No, it's
kind
not
of a thing.
that. But here's what I would say. Prove it to yourself.
Yeah.
Throw a glucose monitor on, see actually what happens. And then once you do that, you'll know exactly. And you'll either never do it again or you'll keep doing it.
Carry on.
on.
So get to the bottom of it then, basically. Okay.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Awesome.
Addiction.
Right on.
Addiction. There we go. You got any more questions?
I have many more, but we're going to leave it at that for now. Maybe next time. Yeah,
All
for
right.
sure.
Well, any closing thoughts from you?
No, I just want to thank you for everything that you do, that you guys both do for the community.
Well, I appreciate it. No, it's glad you could make it down here. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for sharing this information. Thanks for putting that book together. Thanks for doing what you do to help normal people get on the path, stay on the path, and clearly thanks for what you do for the SEAL community with Hunter 7, with the SEAL Future Foundation. It's awesome. And thanks for continuing to work with people to help them get healthier in all aspects of their lives, and of course, stay forever strong. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
And with that, Gabrielle has left the building. Trying to stay strong out there.
Yes,
we are. Look, do we have confirmation bias?
Yeah.
We might.
Bruh.
But
big time.
But we also have some science, some bro science. We're trying to get stronger. We're trying to be stronger. We want to have muscle. We want to eat protein.
Yep.
We want to work out.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're doing. So confirmation bias, perhaps.
Yeah.
But let's face it, kind of true.
Hey, when you're an actual trained, experienced professional saying it, I don't think that that's necessarily bias.
Well, let's face it. You and I have a bias.
Yes.
That supports everything that she just said.
Yeah.
Right? That being said, she's seen thousands of patients, right? She's gone through the schooling. She's experienced it herself. So confirmation bias, yes. But even if you remove that, you gotta listen up. Hey, listen, if you just think, hey, Echo and Jocko are just meatheads, they're just working out protein, if that's what you're thinking right now and you want to throw this away, I would strongly recommend against that. And there now is real science, and you just heard from a doctor talking about why. Lift weights, run, sprint, eat protein, work on your building muscles. What an awesome thing. It's going to make you better in every aspect of your life. You've been saying that since whatever number of podcasts. Lifting and working out will help every aspect of your life more than anything else. It's the same thing that she's saying. So bro science converged, real science converged. We're there. Lift weights, eat clean, eat protein. That's what we're doing. She was asking about protein, right? We know, and one of the things she's got in the book is 30 grams of protein. Like, get that 30 grams of protein at every meal. That's what, guess what a milk is? Guess an RTD milk is 30 grams of protein. That's what we're doing out of the gate. And that's another thing she got in the book, because I read the book. I didn't read the whole thing today, but she was like, hey, if you're going to somewhere where there may be inappropriate foods,
inadequate,
before you go there, have a milk before you go there. Have a milk before you go there. And that way you get there, instead of having 6 slices of freaking pizza, maybe you have a singular slice. And you could bargain with yourself, well, I would rather just have 4 pieces, not have have the protein, have something that's good for you, then go there. The other point that I brought up about wait till tomorrow to take a day off, wait till tomorrow to have the pizza, good advice. So that's what we're doing. Get that protein in. But milk, and she also asked me about, do I go off the path? Bro, if I think about back in the day how much mint chocolate chip ice cream I used to have before milk, and now milk tastes so good. It gives you this satiety. I think that's a word. Satiation. Like that, the satisfaction of having a dessert. And yet it's protein. So good for you. So that's what we're doing. You should do that too, by the way. JockoFuel.com.
It's true.
JockoFuel.com. Get some of that protein. Get some of that. Get some hydrate. Get some greens. Creatine and greens. Are you doing that combo yet? Or are you doing hydrate and greens?
Hydrate creatine.
Hydrate creatine. Get the creatine in your system. It's another thing that's going to just jack you. Did you get the reports from K-Dog?
About the 3 wheels?
Yeah, he's up to 3 wheels. First time. So Carrie, first time in his life, by the way. How old's Carrie?
I don't know, fucking 30 something.
30 something.
36.
Never benched 3 wheels before.
Well, he has now.
No, he has now.
Before I get you.
Well, guess what? You get some of that Jocko creatine, part of the program.
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're getting stronger. So that's what we're doing.
Bruh, and there's no denying that. Bruh, if you're like, hey, I've never benched 315, doesn't matter if it's 315, 2 wheels, 4 wheels, whatever. If you're like, hey, I've never done this, but I do want to get this, and you take creatine versus not take creatine, creatine's going to get you there quicker. Oh, yeah. And
factually.
Oh yeah, factually. And that and so this is what Gabrielle Lyon said actually after we were recording. She brought up the creatine. So it was yet another confirmation that the creatine, among other things, are one of these things that, man, if you implement these certain things into your protocol.
Another thing in your protocol, speaking of protocol, seriously, joint warfare. Take joint warfare. Take krill oil. Take time war. These things are so good for you. Anyways, you guys know the deal. Jocko Fuel. Go to JockoFuel.com. That's where you can get it. You can also get it at Vitamin Shop, GNC, Military Commissaries, Hanafis or AFIs, Hannaford's, Dash Stores in Maryland, Wakefern, ShopRite, HEB down in Tejas. Get in there. Appreciate you all down in Texas. Just keeping it real. Keeping it real down there. The reports we're getting, you all are going in there and just getting after it. So that's appreciated. Same thing with Meyer up in the Midwest. Thank you. Go in there and get after it. We're doing some good deals at these places right now too. Kind of crazy. So get in there. Harris Teeter, Lifetime Fitness, Shields, small gyms everywhere. If you got a gym and you want to sell Jocko Fuel so everyone at your gym can get stronger, faster, smarter, and healthier, email jfsales@jockofuel.com. That's what we're doing. JockoFuel.com. Get some.
It's true. Also, Origin USA. American made. American manufacturing back to America.
100%.
It got kind of almost lost there for a while.
Yeah. It did almost get lost. They were down to the last, and we got it. We have the knowledge. Now we got 20-year-olds that know how to operate a loom. That's what we're doing. So yeah, OriginUSA.com. We got everything you need. We got workout gear. We got jiu-jitsu gear, rash guards, gis, jiu-jitsu gis that feel good. Like another element of the world has come into play. Not to mention jeans, boots, hoodies, t-shirts, the whole night. OriginUSA.com. American manufacturing. None of this matters. None of anything that we're talking about matters if our country falls apart. So one of the components of that is economic strength. Where do we get economic strength? We have to be able to make things. We have to be self-reliant. We have to start somewhere. Where do you start? OriginUSA.com. Crush communism, support America. That's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing. Also, Jocko has a store called Jocko Store, a.k.a. Deathcore. Look, this is if you want to represent on the path. You don't care if someone's looking cool, if no one's looking cool, but you're still representing. This is where you go. This is where you get your stuff. Shirts, hoodies. We got a new hoodie, the quick flip one. Multiple purposes. Converts into a. But anyway, check it out. Discipline Equals Freedom we have a new Discipline Equals Freedom standard shirt. 2024 coming up. Be on the lookout for that. It's not out yet, but if you sign up for the email list on the store on the bottom there, you can get alerted when they come out, so you can get the first wave, the first edition, as one might say. Anyway, also there's we have a little program, if you will, subscription scenario called the Shirt Locker. That's a new design representing Discipline Equals Freedom in one way or another. It's a little bit different, I get it, but you can get a new one every month.
You like that, don't you?
I very much.
You like the whole thing.
I do.
Everything you get to say there.
I like what we get to do. How about that?
You like this.
So, speaking of what I like, the new Sugar Coated Lies shirt for the Shirt Locker for March has been deployed.
Okay. It's out there in the world.
It's in production. No. Hasn't. Sorry, in production. Sorry,
okay.
not deployed. Not offered yet. It starts in March 1st. But yeah, it's good. It's good.
And it's not what someone would think, or it is what someone would think?
Put it this way. Well, I think if you look at it, this is what I think. I don't know. I can't read everybody's mind. But I predict that if you see it, you'll see the layers and you'll be like, I like it. I'm down for the design.
Okay.
Anyway, it's called the Shirt Locker. You like new designs every month. That's where you can get it. JockoStore.com.
Yeah. Also, speaking of getting things, we talked about steak today.
Yeah.
On this podcast. With Gabrielle. We talked about steak. Get yourself some steak. Get yourself some good steak. Go to primalbeef.com or coloradocraftbeef.com and get yourself some steak that tastes delicious and will give you protein. That's what you're looking for. Protein forward.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
Oh, yeah.
Protein forward. I told her I've been protein forward for a long time.
I'm with you.
Protein forward. You know what helps you be protein forward? coloradocraftbeef.com.
Oh, yeah.
primalbeef.com. Go get yourself some steak. That's what we're doing. Also, subscribe to the podcast. Also, JockoUnderground.com. Also, YouTube channels. There's this YouTube channel. There's Jocko Fuel YouTube channel. They just put up a funny one. Did you see the one with Chael? They put up one with Chael's on it. Yeah. It's really good. Chael's a freaking character. And he's beating his son with a belt.
Sure. Hell yeah.
And his son is like, they're just having a blast, man. It's just so freaking cool to see. So check that one out. Also, Origin USA. So check that one out. We just did a little behind the scenes filming. We had a meeting down there in North Carolina at the factory talking about we're now looking at the clothing that we're bringing out in 2025.
Okay.
Some of it's 2024, but we're trying to plan more in advance and just bringing in better quality stuff, more options for everyone, and made 100% in the United States of America, as I mentioned. So check that one out as well. Origin USA is the YouTube channel. Is that what it's called? The YouTube channel. Okay. So there you go. Psychological Warfare. Flipside Canvas. Dakota Meyer making cool stuff to hang on your wall. We got a bunch of books. Obviously, the book we just covered today, Forever Strong, by Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. So check that one out. Also, I've written a bunch of books, Leadership Strategy and Tactics Field Manual, Final Spin, Code the Evaluation Protocol, Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual. I brought that up a couple times today. It's 2017. How old is that? 6 years? Almost 7 years? Almost 7 years old. Guess what? Still pertinent. even, you know what? More pertinent.
Yeah.
There's no information there. You're like, oh, well, that was back then. No.
Yeah.
No. It's holding up, and it's holding up well. She was saying stuff today. She starting to talk about the brain benefits of exercise. It's in the book.
Yeah.
Discipline Equals Freedom, Field Meal. Check it out. And of course, I've written a bunch of kids' books. Kids' books. Your kids need to be on the path. Your neighbors' kids need to be on the path. Your nieces and nephews and grandkids, get them on the path. Send them in the right direction. Wave the Warrior Kids series. Check those out. Mikey and the Dragos. Check that out. Also, Extreme Ownership, Dichotomy Leadership, Hackworth, About Face. These are all books. We have a leadership consultancy, echelonfront.com. If you want us to come out and help you with your organization, you can do that. Also, we have an online training academy, the Extreme Ownership Academy. Go to extremeownership.com if you want to learn how to lead yourself and others through this arduous world that we're in. It's called life. You need skills. You can learn them. extremeownership.com. Check it out. If you want to help service members, active and retired, you want to help their families, Gold Star families, check out Mark Lee's mom, Mama Lee. She's got an incredible charity organization. If you want to help, you want to donate, you want to get involved, go to americasmightywarriors.org. Also, Micah Fink up in the mountains, heroesandhorses.org. Also, Jimmy May's organization, beyondthebrotherhood.org. And then, of course, we have Hunter 7 and the Seal Future Foundation, which Gabrielle talked about today. Check all those out if you want to support. If you want to connect with us for Gabrielle, she's got Dr. GabrielleLyon.com. She's also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, which is now called X, by the way. Did you know that?
I hear good things.
And she has a YouTube channel. So you can find her in all those locations, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. And it's Dr. DR. It's not like the full word.
Right.
So that's where you can find her. And if you want to connect with Echo and I, I'm at Jocko Willink, Echo's at Echo Charles. Just be careful because you go in there, you got your head down, you're kind of like not aware of what's going on.
Sure.
Your finger starts moving up, swiping, scrolling.
Sure.
It's called infinite scroll. That's what it's
okay.
called. It's called infinite scroll. Did you know that?
No.
It's a thing. It didn't used to exist.
Infinite scroll. What is that?
Scroll.
When you're just going, just scrolling, with no end in sight.
No end in sight. And they invented that. It didn't exist. A little while ago, you'd scroll and get to the bottom. And guess what you do then? Stop scrolling. You freaking go pick up a kettlebell.
Yeah, it said you're all caught up.
Yeah.
Remember that? Wait, does it not say that anymore?
No.
I haven't seen that in a while.
It's infinite scroll. Think about that. Infinite scroll. Yeah, so you can get on and you can start to scroll and you can never leave. Then you die. Okay. It's called the and by the way, the things that's showing you are things that you want. I've heard now they're it can see you. And it's watching your eyes. Well, it definitely knows how long. Like when you scroll past something, and it's like, oh, jiu-jitsu. Oh, that's a good guard pass. You watch it. Oh, yeah. Shows you another guard pass. Mm-hmm. Shows you another guard pass. Mm-hmm. And then you go. You see a karate thing. Mm-hmm. You scroll right by that. It doesn't show you any more karate. It goes back to jiu-jitsu. Yeah. Now it shows like the details. Yeah. Now it's showing you a gi. Now it's you know what I mean. It's
like troubleshooting your thing.
It's like an infinite scroll, customized for your dumb ass. So don't fall into it. Yeah. That's what it is. So just be careful. The algorithm, it's a monster. And by the way, we are only able to be sitting here tonight doing what we're doing because of our military troops out there right now sacrificing their freedoms so we can keep ours. So thanks to all of our troops. Also thanks to our police, law enforcement, firefighters, paramedics, EMTs, dispatchers, correctional officers, Border Patrol, Secret Service, as well as all other first responders. Thank you for your sacrifices to keep us safe here at home. And to everyone else out there, it's simple, but it's not easy. Simple, but it's not easy. Don't eat the junk. Lift heavy things. Move. Don't submit your movements. Run. Sprint. Get the protein you need. Train. This is not complicated. It's not complicated. This isn't rocket science. This isn't brain surgery. It's not complicated. But you have to have discipline. You have to have discipline. You have to impose discipline to get up every day, go out there, and get after it. Until next time, this is Echo and Jocko